the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on the 5th of January. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua. Now, Donald Trump doubles down on the Don Road Doctrine, America's new control of Venezuela.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
We're in charge.
Yes, overnight, the United States president threatens Venezuela's new leader with a fate worse than the ousted leader Nicolás Maduro's if she doesn't do what's right. And that's not all.
Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
Could Colombia be next in line for the fire and fury of the resurgently interventionist America? President Donald Trump turns his eyes to more countries as he hits out at South America's drug trafficking. He's also turning his eyes north to the Arctic Circle.
We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Yes, Trump claims he needs American control of Greenland for defence, as Denmark's Prime Minister urges him to stop making threats to take over their Arctic territory.
The PM Sir Keir Starmer tells me for GB News that Greenland has a right to sovereignty. He also calls Nigel Farage slippery. Stay tuned for the full interview.
In a drive to tackle obesity, so-called junk food adverts are from today banned on TV before 9 p.m. and at any time online. Sadiq Khan has already had this policy in place in London Transport, and it has led to bans on advertising featuring hot dogs and wedding cake.
Ruben Amorim has been sacked as Manchester United manager after 14 months in charge, following his lashing out in a press conference last night.
Wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures and widespread ice warnings, just as people return to work, school after Christmas.
The snow is falling here in Scarborough as that yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place across all 4 nations in Britain.
Nice quiet start to the year, Nana.
It really was, wasn't it? Very peaceful and calm. No invasions or anything like that, no takeovers.
No missiles raining down on munitions stores in South American countries.
Nothing like that at all.
No kidnapping dictators, illegitimate dictators from those countries too. But now we've got our own Prime Minister wading in, and a lot of people have been asking the question.
Not quite wading in, just gently. He sat on the fence for a bit, but now he's sort of stuck out one of his sort of paddles and oars and said something that maybe, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. He's between a rock and a hard place. He knows just how important the relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States is, how vital our alliance is, so he doesn't want to irritate the United States president. But at the same time, he's got an entire parliamentary party there begging him to say stuff about the US president. And I think this is where the Greenland comment that we have just heard, we'll hear more from Christopher Hope about it in a second, but this is one of the only times that I think I can remember the Prime Minister, as Prime Minister, talking out directly against the wishes of Donald Trump.
Yes, I know. And the problem with this, though, from his point of view, is that really and truly he has to be careful because we are not in the EU and we have kind of slowly aligned ourselves. He has kind of aligned ourselves, this country, with the EU in more ways than a lot of people would like. And he also needs to stay friends with the US because of the lovely trade deals that we're supposed to be doing with them. And so he is in that difficult position, but I think he needs to be honest and decisive. And if he genuinely wants to go against Donald Trump, and he genuinely means it, then so be it. But I think it's unwise.
It is an interesting and developing situation. Of course, over the weekend, the Prime Minister was saying that he was thinking about looking at the single market with the European Union, so accepting more and more European Union rules. Does that mean that in this burgeoning, sort of developing power bloc world, where you've got the United States, you've got China, you've got... is the Prime Minister actually peeling away from the United States now?
Well, he always wanted to get back into the EU anyway. I mean, he demanded a second referendum despite the vote quite clearly stating that people wanted to leave. And he has often showed his side that he wants to go back in there. And all the slowly small steps suggest that that's where he's heading. So right now, it doesn't surprise me that he seems to be aligning with them. But I think he's wiser to say nothing. Why does he have to say anything at all? Well, he's not part of it. He said we have nothing to do with this. Yeah. He should say nothing.
It is curious, because we look at all of these different power blocks around the world. I don't think I'd call Europe a power block at the moment.
No,
it's relatively irrelevant. And looking at over the weekend, when everyone was talking about international law, I think it was only the European countries in the world that were talking about international law. Russia doesn't give a fig for international law. China doesn't give a fig for international law. It looks like the United States now barely pays lip service to international law. Is this small group of 28 countries in Europe now the only group of countries in the world that actually thinks about international law?
International law doesn't really mean anything. It's literally unenforceable, and if nobody listens, then it's nothing. But what do you think? Send us your thoughts, your comments. gbnews.com/your say. The QR code right there. You can scan that and send us your comments as well. But first, your latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon. It's just gone midday. These are your latest headlines. Well, breaking in the last few minutes, Sir Keir Starmer has said that he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump threatened to annex Greenland, adding that the Danish Prime Minister was right to refuse the US President any claim to the territory. That's as the Danish PM, Mette Frederiksen, said it makes absolutely no sense and the US has no right to annex any of the three nations in the Danish kingdom. Well, President Trump earlier said that we do need Greenland, absolutely, claiming that the US needs it for defence. Now, the US president has repeatedly advocated for the self-governing Danish territory to become a part of the United States because of its mineral wealth and strategic location. Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer faces a revolt as MPs demand that he condemns the US's attack on Venezuela. The Prime Minister has refused to call the capture of the President Maduro an illegal act in a breach of international law. Meanwhile, President Trump has issued a stark warning to the interim leader, urging her to comply with his wishes. The US president has threatened a fate worse than ousted Maduro's if she doesn't do what's right. Maduro is in New York facing weapons and drug charges after he was captured by US forces over the weekend and isn't set to appear in court today. An emergency UN Council meeting is scheduled for 3 o'clock this afternoon, whilst at home, the Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper is expected to lay out the government's response to the capture in the Commons. GB News spoke to Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Migration and Citizenship, Mike Tapp, about the attack earlier.
Really important for the Venezuelan people that this dictator has been removed. You know, he arrested political dissidents, he tortured, he used sexual violence. Venezuela is safer without him. What we need now is a peaceful, safe transition and democratic transition for the Venezuelan people. And we're really clear that this country, the very foundations of this country are international law and rules-based system, and that hasn't changed.
And some sporting news, Ruben Amorim has been sacked by Manchester United. The news comes just 24 hours after the 40-year-old took aim at the club's hierarchy following their 1-1 draw with Leeds on Sunday. The Red Devils only hired the Portuguese coach in November 2024, following the departure of Erik ten Hag. It's been named that Darren Fletcher will take charge of Wednesday's Premier League game against Burnley. Now, hundreds of schools have been shut and flights cancelled as weather warnings remain in force, with snow bringing disruption. Sub-zero temperatures are proving to be a key issue as millions return to work and school after the holidays. Forecasters warn of heavy snowfall, dangerous travel conditions and rural communities potentially being cut off, while health officials urge people to check in on the elderly and the vulnerable. 10 people have been found guilty of cyberbullying Brigitte Macron in a Paris court. This is the latest legal action related to France's First Lady, sparked by false claims that she is a transgender woman who was born a man. The 8 men and 2 women, aged 41 to 60, were tried in the Paris criminal court and had been accused of making malicious comments about Brigitte Macron's gender and sexuality, including equating her age difference with her husband to paedophilia. Border powers toughen as new laws on phone grabbing take effect. From today, officers can seize mobile phones and SIM cards from migrants without making an arrest, aiming to crack down on people smugglers behind channel crossings. The government says that the measures will speed up intelligence gathering, while critics argue that this offers cosmetic changes without a real deterrent. Shadow Minister of State for Illegal Immigration, Crime and Policing, Matt Vickers, told GB News that this was just tinkering around the edges.
People who break into this country, who come in illegally, without permission, without the passport, who have no right to be here, should be removed. That's how you solve this. Everybody at home knows it. It's the common sense approach, and we know it works because we tested it when we had that agreement in place with Albania. It was one of the top places from which people were arriving in the country. We stopped those people coming, we removed them straight away, and all of a sudden, 93% less of them were arriving in this country. We need a deterrent, we need it in place. Everything else is tinkering around the edges.
And from Bond to Hogwarts, a Scottish motor museum says that its collection of iconic movie props could be worth millions. The privately owned museum near Falkirk attracts around 10,000 visitors per year and gained charity status in 2012. It's currently exhibiting a working replica of the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car, a van featured in Only Fools and Horses, and a Ford Anglia used as the flying car in the Harry Potter films. Proud owner Colin Anderson says that after collecting for 21 years, the main attraction is definitely the Lotus Esprit from James Bond's The Spy Who Loved Me. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in just under half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.346 and 1.152 euros. The price of gold is £3,285.72 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,967 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. We take you to live pictures in New York, where Nicolas Maduro, the former president of Venezuela, captured in that astonishing military assault on the South American country by the United States over the weekend, is being transported to the Southern District Court of New York.
So the pictures you are seeing are live. It'll be very fascinating to see exactly what happens there. We will bring you all of the details, but it is, of course, to say that he is under trial for its
narco-terrorism.
Narco-terrorism, he called it, narco-terrorism. And interestingly enough, of course, Donald Trump is now making soundings that he may be even trying Colombia next, but people are praying that that isn't the case, and even Greenland is in his sights.
Well, the grand jury of the United States charges that for over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their positions of public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine into the United States. The indictment continues that Nicolas Maduro, the defendant, is at the forefront of that corruption and has partnered with his co-conspirators to use his illegally obtained authority and the institutions he corroded to transport thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States. Since his early days in the Venezuelan government, Maduro has tarnished every public office he has held. As a member of Venezuela's National Assembly, Maduro moved loads of cocaine under the protection of Venezuelan law enforcement. This is the prosecution against him. But let's just repeat, this was until this weekend the dictator of Venezuela, a sworn enemy of the United States, backed by countries like Russia and China, now a prisoner of the Americans in the state of New York. Just extraordinary.
Now, of course, that leaves Venezuela sort of open, as it were, but they're going to undergo a peaceful transition to democracy as quick as possible. And Sir Keir Starmer has said this, adding that the former President, Nicolas Maduro, was illegitimate. When he was asked why he thought that President Trump had captured Nicolas Maduro, Keir Starmer said that America would run Venezuela. So it does sound this is for Donald Trump to answer, and I think he has said in a press conference, which I watched with interest, around narco-terrorism and that threat.
Well, of course, this afternoon also Delcy Rodriguez, who it was until today the vice president of Venezuela, a Maduro and indeed a Chavez loyalist, now becoming the president this very afternoon, being sworn in as we speak. But of course, up until now, a sworn opponent of the Americans. Will she be doing the bidding of Donald Trump now? Well, let's speak to former Foreign Minister Alistair Burt. Alistair, I mean, it is just extraordinary to be looking at these pictures here, live in New York, of a man who, up until this weekend, thought of himself as untouchable.
Yes. Hello, Tom. Nana, thanks for having me on. Yes, this whole 48 hours has been, pretty well unprecedented in recent times. The Americans have a habit of doing this, of course, but so many different things are worth commenting on. Firstly, as you see, the pictures are quite deliberate. This is done to show that the United States has won this particular incident. Here is a former dictator, enemy of Donald Trump, about to go on trial. So these pictures, like all the pictures we've seen since Maduro was captured, are all, carefully staged. But you have this consequence now of what is going to happen. What will happen to the people of Venezuela? They have lost someone who no one is going to weep any tears for. But as we have found with previous interventions by states that seek to remove bad people like Saddam Hussein and bring in something better, it doesn't always work out that way. So everything that unfolds from the other night is a matter of
Maduro
great,
being led
great
out
importance.
of that van. Just the most extraordinary pictures here. Nicolas Maduro being led into a police car with flashing lights. Our correspondent Charlie Peters is with us in the studio. Charlie, just extraordinary images there of a man in handcuffs.
Yes, so Nicolas Maduro obviously being now taken towards his first court appearance, which is scheduled to be about 5 hours' time. But he has got such a difficult procedure to go through before then, and I'm talking about the difficulty for the US security services to move this man safely into the court, the Southern District of New York. We are expecting that appearance later today. He is in one of the most secure prisons in the United States. That's where he spent the last 2 days, and he's
Well, we can now come back to Alistair Burt. Sorry, Alistair, for interrupting you there. We were just seeing those pictures of Nicolas Maduro. I believe only the second pictures, really, that we've seen of him since his arrest.
Yes, but as I say, you'll see many more. The pictures are deliberately being beamed out to make sure people know what has happened and see it as a great result for Donald Trump and American power.
People are saying that actually Donald Trump has broken international law. People are banding that phrase around.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think that's probably right. But it doesn't really matter very much. You said a moment ago, Nana, that international law is effectively in abeyance at present. We're working through a new period where might is right. And whatever international order was created out of the tragedy of the 20th century and the horrific world wars, that generation has gone. It's been replaced by people who have forgotten the lessons, and we're now into a new era. There will be some results that will be good, like removing a bad man on this occasion, but there will be consequences of this that are likely to be bad. So how do you make your judgment on what is the right thing to have done? And I think that is one of the issues posed by the actions we've seen in the last 48 hours, and it will run on for some time.
Alistair, to what extent did international law ever really exist as anything more than sort of a figment of imagination of some of these countries? I mean, ultimately, we have seen American interventions in plenty of countries dubiously justified. We've seen actions by the Soviet Union and now Russia. We've seen actions by China, nominally a member of the World Trade Organization, doesn't obey any of the rules of the World Trade Organization. I mean, I could go on. All of these different countries wantonly, willfully disregarding so-called international law when it suits them.
I think I would argue that it's withered over time, Tom. I think in the first place, after 1945, because people had lived through and remembered the horrors of what happened with aggressive nationalism, the seizure of territory, the build-up of military forces, the blaming of other people for failures in your own country. We'd been through all that and people wanted that to stop. And of course, there have been many occasions where international law has taken issues to the United Nations. There's been United Nations resolution to govern certain action. That's why UN troops are peacekeepers. They're in place in various parts of the world and have been put there because of international law. So it has acted as a check over time. But you're also perfectly correct to say that in recent times, it's falling into abeyance. And I think the honest truth now is a strong-willed country that wants to do what it believes is in its interest and has the means and the power to do so, will do that. The question for the rest of us is, how are we going to cope with this? Because not everybody can afford to build up their military to a state where we're all prepared to take on our neighbour if they turn against us. This is where it led before. This is where it might lead again.
I mean, how relevant is Keir Starmer to all of this? Because he's sort of siding with the Danish and talking about Greenland. But how relevant is his input anyway? And how careful does he really have to be with regard to what he says and what that impact will have on his relationship with Donald Trump?
Well, again, I thought you put it very well a few moments ago in your lead into this. He does have to be careful. There will certainly be plenty of people who will be demanding that he stands up in the House of Commons and makes a very strong statement saying that Donald Trump has behaved outrageously in relation to international law and all that. But if that impacts next week on tariffs in relation to British business, how will people feel about him? So he does have to play a delicate line with this. And again, no one is going to come along and say, well, Maduro should have been kept in office. I think he will be right to play it very carefully. I was listening to Alex Younger this morning, the former head of MI6, and he was asked, what advice would you give to the government at the moment? And he said to be very careful. This isn't our sphere of influence, and there's no need for us to get over-involved in this. So I don't think it's unfair to expect the government to hold a very careful line and really to concentrate on what happens next. You know, for Donald Trump to stand there and say, I'm running another country. These people behind me, secretaries of state, they're going to be running another country. Well, hold on a minute. Yeah. This is a sovereign country. The Venezuelans have been through a lot. They've been through elections that have been disregarded. When do they come into it? And how can it possibly be that if the United States doesn't like those who are elected in due course in Venezuela, that they will remove them again?
And now, Alistair, sorry to interrupt again, but I should just mention that on our screens we are seeing that deposed dictator being frog-marched out of a car, across a concourse, and by the looks of it, towards a helicopter. Alistair, do stay on the line for us. I'm just going to bring in Charlie Peters, our correspondent here in the studio. Charlie, again, these images, look at his head, bowed down there. This was a man that was once all-powerful in a Southern American country, and now a prisoner of the United States.
And wearing prisoner's uniform with those orange shoes you're seeing there for adding to his visibility as they move him around the city, and a sheer display of American power as well, with the number of people involved in this convoy being taken now by helicopter from Brooklyn, where he's been at the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center, where he will now be flown towards a Manhattan courthouse for his first appearance in a US court. He's in the Southern District of New York, where many high-profile prosecutions he uses. This courthouse is used regularly for federal prosecutions of the highest level, and he has his arraignment hearing at midday local times, around 5 o'clock our time. Charges will be read out to the accused, and they will then be invited to enter a plea. What will Nicolas Maduro, the deposed president of Venezuela, say when he is asked by a US judge what his response is to those drug trafficking charges, also possession of a machine gun, very similar to the charges he first faced when indicted in 2020. And we can tell you that there is already an enormous gathering outside that courthouse. It's quite similar to the process you'd expect in the United Kingdom. When you go to the Crown Court here, there's often large queues for the media to get into those very limited spots inside courthouses. Different rules there because filming is often permitted in US courts, whereas in England and Wales, that's totally forbidden, any recording of any kind. But in the United States and in Manhattan as well, a lot of media outlets are using what's referred to as line sitters. These are people they pay to get in a queue to make sure that when the time comes, their correspondents, their producers can jump in to get an observation on Nicolas Maduro, now inside that helicopter as it's preparing to cross over into Manhattan from Brooklyn. They make pretty good money, actually, $25 an hour for those who are sitting in that line, waiting to reserve a seat in Court 26A for the United States of America versus Maduro Moros, which will be kicking off around 5 p.m. in UK time. And while the world watches these dramatic pictures of the deposed president moving over, a lot of commentators, a lot of intelligence agencies as well will be closely tracking the language coming out of the Trump administration, both in Mar-a-Lago and, of course, those working in Washington as well, because of recent comments about Cuba, about Colombia and Greenland, all attracting significant attention, particularly recent language he's made about how the US needs Greenland, a particularly strong statement, which is going to attract wider condemnation, we expect, from European powers. We just heard our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, talking about how the UK stands with Denmark. But the US President, speaking to reporters last night, said we need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. As I speak to you now, we are tracking widespread movements of US military cargo planes, fuel tankers and fighter jets in the Middle East, particularly coming out of Jordan in the last few hours, but also flights towards their airbase Al Udeid in Qatar, where there's been a lot of operations going on there. We're talking about KC Voyagers. These are heavy-duty refueling tankers. A lot of activity in the United Kingdom as well. A very powerful launching point for US power when it wants to project further. We don't know what Donald Trump is going to do next. He's making threats in all sorts of directions to the president of Colombia in that press conference on Saturday, saying he needs to watch his ass. Remarkable language from the president of the United States. I think a lot of world leaders who are in precarious positions, including the Ayatollah in Iran, they will be watching and listening very nervously. And just as we speak about those issues further afield, we now see those two helicopters taking off in Brooklyn, heading towards Manhattan. We did see another figure in prison fatigues with those orange shoes walking further forwards as well. So perhaps another prisoner appearing in court later today as well.
Could that be Maduro's wife, who of course was arrested at the same time?
It could be, but I couldn't tell from the angle there whether it was a man or a woman. And so far we haven't. I don't think we've seen his wife, Sila Flores, appear. I think it might have been another man, but we'll wait for confirmation on that as and when we get it.
Now, how likely is Maduro to lose this case? Because Donald Trump and, this isn't just a sudden thing that is happening. Donald Trump has been warning Maduro for months, if not for quite a long time. And so how likely is Donald Trump, how likely are they to be successful in prosecuting him?
Well, there is, of course, in the US, that separation between the justice arm and the executive office. But when we hear those pleas, that will be the first indication we get of the sort of combative stance that Maduro might take on. We've seen his wife, the First Lady, being dubbed the first warrior by Maduro. And while this is all going on, obviously, his cabinet, his regime back in Venezuela, at least publicly, they are saying that they stand with him. This is an appalling act of criminality, of piracy, of theft, of imperialism, taking away their president. But when Maduro, as he is right now, sitting in the back of that helicopter, he is being taken to a US courthouse to face those drug trafficking and weapons charges in a New York court. Now, it's a particularly good question because the White House has come under a lot of criticism for not providing sufficient evidence that Nicolas Maduro is the drugs trafficker they say he is. They've certainly taken a lot of action as if he is very much running a cartel. That is the accusation that they've made towards him. They've launched drone strikes, of course, on 115 drone strikes on those alleged narco-terrorist trafficking boats, those small boats that we've seen moving from Venezuela towards the United States. But they have been asked to provide more evidence about that link, about those organisations, about the flow of drugs. That's not been forthcoming. We also saw the CIA take out some facilities at a port in Venezuela. In reaction to that, Nicolas Maduro was filmed dancing, talking about there needs to be no war, more peace. White House officials are said to have seen that as an accusation that they thought the US president was bluffing, that he wasn't willing to take to the next stage. Well, the bluff certainly was called, wasn't it? Because here he is now in US custody, and he was taken into custody by DEA officials, the Drugs Enforcement Agency, and an agency under the Department of Justice umbrella, and that has been crucial to the framing of this by US officials. Beautiful shot of the Manhattan skyline.
Can I just say at this moment, what a symbol of American power for this supposed dictator to be flown into one of the most prosperous cities in the world, just this enormous might of American financial prowess. I mean, he must be sitting in the back of that helicopter looking at New York, just thinking, what have I got myself in for? The sheer power of the American state coming down against a man who was once all-powerful in his own country. I do want to bring back in Alistair Burt, the former foreign minister, who is on the line still, because Alistair, Charlie was just talking there about what might happen elsewhere in the world. Are we seeing a strangely, perhaps unpredictably, interventionist Donald Trump?
Yes, I think that's clear from what he's already done and what he's been saying. And one of the mysteries is that he came to office pledged not to do this. He had very strong backing from his America First constituency that was tired of the so-called never-ending wars. He bitterly criticized the actions of the United States administrations in Iraq and Afghanistan for what they had done in trying to take over and run sovereign countries. And here he is doing exactly that. So I think there will be some concern amongst his own base about what's going to happen next.
Apologies there. We seem to have cut to another feed. Just we can see there, Nicolas Maduro is stepping out of the helicopter. Charlie Peters is with us in the studio. Charlie, what were we looking at here?
Well, Nicolas Maduro now in Lower Manhattan. I think interesting to see the DEA being involved in this transfer, the Drugs Enforcement Agency. When we saw that, what will undoubtedly become an iconic image of Nicolas Maduro on board the USS Iwo Jima hours after his capture, a DEA agent was also pictured alongside him. The US very keen to project this theory, this hypothesis behind their intervention, that it was due to drugs trafficking. The DEA will be front and centre through all of this activity as much as possible. Now, we're also hearing now from our producer, Lewis Mackenzie, that it appears the other passenger of that helicopter is a woman, so likely his wife, Chila Flores, who is also being transported to the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan later today. That Brooklyn jail complex is about 5 miles away and moving across now. The couple has been at the jail, which has, of course, housed many infamous detainees, including Ghislaine Maxwell and Puff Daddy and Sean Combs, since Saturday. Now moving with the support and the convoy of armed personnel from the DEA and as a heavily armed manoeuvre. But it doesn't have to be this public. This is a perp walk really like no other. The US is putting on a show here to ensure that he is as visible as possible. They could just as easily, as we see him now being put into a vehicle and taken away towards that courthouse, they could have just as easily done this in a slightly more private fashion without as much time of him out in public as possible. He seems to be struggling getting into that armoured vehicle now, in cuffs, as you'd expect, with more DEA and armed officers surrounding the deposed president. They are now going to head by vehicle to that Manhattan courthouse. He's been charged with narco-terrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, among other charges, according to that unsealed indictment as the doors close on that armoured vehicle. His wife is also charged with that cocaine conspiracy and the weapons charges as well. And this is the peak, the pinnacle of a months-long campaign that was being launched by the US administration in Venezuela. We've seen a blockade in the southern Caribbean. We've seen 2 oil tankers being seized. We might yet see a third, which is approaching waters between the Faroe Islands and Iceland, and indeed the United Kingdom, where there's quite a lot of US military activity at the moment. So there's a realistic possibility we could see some further military action on Venezuelan-linked oil tankers quite close to the United Kingdom. But right now, Nicolas Maduro in that armoured vehicle preparing to be moved towards the courthouse where he will be facing those charges. I have to say, watching this footage, Tom and Nana, it's like something out of a Christopher Nolan film, with the way he's being displayed to everyone, the sheer sense of power, the backdrop of Manhattan, the financial capital of the world, and very much, the strength of US capital and military might and justice on display.
Cameras at all angles. You can see it right here, right now on GB News. Now, Charlie, President Trump made no secret about this, that this was also about oil, and you talked about the oil tankers. How does this affect, in your view, America's relationship with the other oil-producing nations of the world? Because, of course, Venezuela is part of OPEC. OPEC is a massive, massive global cartel, literally, of all the different oil companies, different countries coming together to protect their stake in the oil market.
Absolutely. I mean, OPEC, they deliberately reduce the amount of production all of its members can be a part of. This is the organisation of the petroleum exporting countries. Its largest member is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but of course Venezuela has the most in reserves, but some of the least in terms of output. And importantly, it also has just the sort of oil that the United States needs. It has heavy crude that the American refineries are very interested in. This will be a tremendous blow to Russia and China as well, because they have invested heavily in diplomatic relations with Venezuela, but of course also in terms of oil production infrastructure to try and make those inroads to ensure the safe flow of oil from that country to their own. And Iran, this will be a double blow to its proxies, especially Hezbollah. Hezbollah-linked tankers have been among those sanctioned by the United States going in and out of Venezuela. Indeed, the Bella 1, which is currently approaching the United Kingdom in the North Atlantic, that was sanctioned in 2024, that tanker, due to alleged links between Iran and Hezbollah. It was travelling from Iran towards Venezuela when it was approached by US Coast Guard, who threatened to board it at the end of last month. It's been on the run for 2 weeks. Maduro now moving on the roads away from Manhattan, away from Brooklyn rather, towards that Manhattan courthouse. I wonder to what extent those roads will have been shut off. It is still relatively early morning.
Well, Charlie, we did see so many armed personnel around Maduro, and indeed, we believe, his wife too. I mean, the most extraordinary amount of security. Is this for show, or is there genuinely a concern that Maduro-linked operations might actually free him, as if something even deeper out of a Christopher Nolan film?
I think that's highly unlikely, but there are 1.1 million Venezuelans in the United States, many of them in the southern United States, who are delighted that this has happened, absolutely elated. And what often happens when a high-profile figure who is hated is charged is that you'll see people rushing towards those vans, trying to throw missiles at them, try to have their moment of justice as justice awaits. The United States would very much be wanting to avoid any sort of interaction, be it sort of pro or anti-Maduro activists. There have been people protesting outside the Brooklyn detention centre where Maduro's been since Saturday evening, protesting against the US action. We've seen sort of hands-off Venezuela, anti-imperialist, leftist protesters, and in the US they are kept in sort of pens for these protests, very organised and strictly observed protests. You can see there some of the blockades put up by, that looks like vehicles from the NYPD to ensure the flow of Nicolas Maduro. And you can see the open back of the van in front of it. We can't see into that, but I'd say almost certainly that is an armed observation onto the front of the vehicle to keep it covered from all angles. You'll have total oversight from the air as well as this process continues. And that's a seriously hefty vehicle carrying him as well. Bulletproof in the extreme. There is nothing really that's going to threaten to penetrate that vehicle, providing what I'd say, Tom, is a show of force beyond what is necessary.
And we can see in the back of that van there, those observers, armed officers.
Keeping an eye on the vehicle, and members of the NYPD out of their vehicles observing his arrival as well, keeping the streets clear as he continues that journey towards the Manhattan courthouse, where he will be travelling, we now understand, with his wife, will be part of that convoy. It'll be interesting to see if she appears in the same courthouse with him as well, or whether there will be separate appearances on the indictment. Maduro was seen as he approached that motorcade and indeed the helicopter wearing a tan jumpsuit inside the prison. He's worn quite a few different outfits since he was picked up, including what appeared to be a Nike tracksuit when he was first detained on the USS Iwo Jima. But now that vehicle reversing inside the Manhattan courthouse, and journalists have been camped outside there in the below freezing temperatures early this morning. Interesting to see no protesters gathering there. So the location very much cleared of any potential observers or those who might get close to the deposed president. And the indictment for the accusations of narco-terrorism and the conspiracy to import cocaine will be read out to him in the next 5 hours. He'll have a lawyer. He'll be standing in there. He'll have representation. I imagine he'll have pretty excellent representation as well. This is a dream job for any attorney in Manhattan, to represent Maduro, to have the focus and attention on this, to see what legal tricks and skills can be deployed in such an extraordinary case, with the might of the US Department of Justice going against you, with USA versus Maduro, Moros, and indeed his wife there as well. So reporters already in line outside that courthouse, waiting for a chance to get in and observe the ousted Venezuelan president. But the area around it totally closed off, totally silent, and a totally clear route for that armoured vehicle to make its way towards the courthouse this morning.
It's interesting, that ambulances and everything, so they've got all bases covered. I'm wondering how long this trial will go on for, and what he will plead, whether he'll plead not guilty. Presumably he'll plead not guilty.
I'd assume so. Yeah. I think it'd be astonishing if he did that.
Yeah.
But it will be several hours until we can hear those pleas. We're expecting 5 p.m. UK time for that all to take place. Let's not forget, this is early in the morning in New York right now, but that transfer now appears to have concluded. Still on the line with us is the former Foreign Office Minister, Alistair Burt. Alistair, a show of American power, no doubt. This won't just be for American domestic audiences, for people watching GB News. This will also be for people sitting in countries like Iran, like China. Just a sort of show of strength of what the Americans can do?
Yeah, sure, Tom. And thank you very much for giving me a ringside seat to follow all this. You'd like to think it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and perhaps the next one with the Prime Minister of Denmark, I don't know. But anyway, it's been fascinating to see. As you say, very much designed for audiences, for domestic audiences. The military operation to take Maduro out of his country was quite remarkable. No one is denying that. And to reinforce that, here is this process now very public, with views all over the world, no doubt, and certainly those states that have been threatened recently by President Trump will have taken note. I noticed one person who hasn't been on television, though, is the Honduran President Hernandez, who was convicted of smuggling cocaine into the United States and given a 45-year prison sentence, who was pardoned in November for doing almost exactly the same as President Maduro. But maybe Honduras doesn't have as much oil as Venezuela. I couldn't possibly comment.
Well, Trump has been quite open about the fact that this is about drugs, but he has been very clear it's also about oil. So for that, at least, he's been straightforward about.
Yes. President Trump is straightforward about America's interests. And this is where your earlier questions and the consideration of what happens next is so important. We now have a situation where one man alone decides what's in his country's interest and takes decisions based upon that. And if he decides that what your country is doing is not in his interests, he will take action. Take the example of the European officials the other week who've had sanctions imposed upon them because of what the Americans now call restrictions on freedom of speech. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you are. But if the President of the United States decides that you're not acting in his interests, he will take action. He's already said for Venezuela, he will he will run the country, and then they will look to transfer to an administration which does what he wants. And he's said that very, very straightforwardly.
But that's no different to any other sort of takeover. For example, even when we went in Afghanistan, we wanted to create a place that was more favourable to our interests. That's how it goes.
That's right, and that went well, didn't it? Like Iraq. This is the problem now. We can understand, what he says, but is he repeating the mistakes of the past? Venezuela is a sovereign country. Of course, it must not be a threat to the United States. The United States is entitled to ensure that isn't the case. But how Venezuela governs itself, who it elects, and who forms its government is a matter for them. And if they do things that the United States doesn't like, but doesn't threaten the US, well, what's to happen then? It's clear that he wants the oil interest to work
Nicolas
in the
Maduro
US interest.
lost the last election in Venezuela. He lost it handsomely. 80% of the votes went to a man called Gonzalez, his opponent.
Correct.
And so, to that extent, can we really say that this is the United States attempting to install a favourable regime, or really is it the United States attempting to return the government of Venezuela to the Venezuelans?
Well, Tom, we will just have to wait and see. You're quite right. What everybody wants to see is exactly that, and for the Venezuelans to make their decisions about what they want. Clearly, that has been denied them over recent elections in recent years. There's no argument about that. Will this deliver that? Saddam Hussein was removed in order to give the people of Iraq an opportunity for something different. That didn't work. In Afghanistan, the Taliban were rightly removed because of the various atrocities that they were committing against their own people and the threat that they posed to others by harbouring terrorists. What's happened now? Can you maintain?
But those were different because we were trying to impose a regime of democracy in areas, in countries that were more I can't even say the word now, theocratic. So they had their own specific way of ruling, and we wanted to impose our Western democracy. Here in Venezuela, they wanted a democratic, and they are a democratic country, and they were denied democracy. So, and there is a lot of support from the Venezuelans who are in America and the Venezuelans themselves. So that is at least something.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against that at all. As I said right at the top of it, there's a short answer and a longer answer to this. Is what President Trump did right or wrong in international law? I suspect it's wrong. Does that matter? No. No one is going to take the United States to court over this. No one is going to seek to return Maduro to Venezuela or anything like that. It is all about what happens next. And whether when Trump says that I'm going to run it, the people behind me, the secretaries of state, we're going to run it in our interests, in America's interests, we'll give something back to the Venezuelan people. I mean, is it a colony? Is it a protectorate? It's not an independent state at the moment. But clearly, if the people get their opportunity to elect who they want to have elected, and they've been denied that by Maduro in the past, that will be a bonus for the region and for Latin America. We need to wait and see, though. But if that happens, then that will be good news. But what is the lesson for others? And what about the threats to other people, to Cuba, and particularly for us in Europe, the threats to Greenland? I mean, are these empty threats? Marco Rubio was keen to tell us at the weekend, take note of what the president says. He does what he says. You've made this mistake in the past. Are we to take him seriously about Greenland? What will that do? And he wanted to make sure Canada was a governor. Now, on the one hand, you can laugh at some of this. No one's laughing in Venezuela now.
I suppose one of the big questions about this is how much does this affect the wider world? We've heard a lot of discussion about something called the Monroe Doctrine over the course of the weekend. Of course, James Monroe, President of the United States in, I think, the 1820s, establishing this doctrine that America's sphere of influence stretched down from Argentina to the tip of Canada, that the Americas were America's sphere of influence, that they wouldn't get involved in European wars and that they didn't expect the Europeans to get involved in their backyard, so to speak. Well, Donald Trump has renamed this as the Don-Roe Doctrine. Is this to expect that the United States now sees the entire North and South American continents as sort of his purview, but will be less interested in getting involved in our back door?
I think that's a perfectly sensible analysis, Tom. There are plenty who now say that the international order created post-1945 after the horrors of the world wars is returning to spheres of influence where powerful nations, large powerful nations, Russia, China, will make decisions about what they perceive to be in their interests round about them. They will tolerate what other states do in their spheres of influence. So that's what we're returning to. So instead of an international set of rules whereby smaller states could depend on larger states to protect them because of international law, that seems to be disappearing. And if you're a smaller state...
Did that ever exist? I mean, I think of the Bay of Pigs. I think of Grenada. I think of lots of American interventions, some successful, some unsuccessful, that took place over the course of the latter half of the 20th century.
I think it was a conditioning factor in all those. You know, Bay of Pigs was notoriously unsuccessful. There have been other interventions which have been sanctioned by the UN. Iraq and Libya, for example, these were not unilateral actions by the United States. They did go through a UN process, much disputed and the like.
Iraq famously didn't get a second resolution.
Quite right, and Russia always took that as being, you know, of great significance. It all began to wither with those sort of actions. You're correct. Have we now seen the end process of that? Did it ever exist? Yes, I think it did post-1945 because of what everyone had been through. Has it been withering since then? Yes, I think it has been, and I think the evidence is there before us. The question is, who is to decide what is the United States sphere of influence? Is Greenland in the United States sphere of influence? And why should he decide that?
Well, that's exactly what they will do. They will decide. But where does that put things like the EU, which are, you know, like a group of countries who are obviously put together to protect each other, NATO? Where does that put them now that there are big countries all... Because these countries are one country, so they can make a decision overall. They don't need to wait for 26 or 27 other countries to come to the table. One will have a veto with their interests at heart and so on and so forth. Where does that place the EU?
The EU was never formed as a defensive alliance. The EU is essentially a trading area. It was formed to ensure that coal, iron and steel would not be used for one European nation to fight another. And in that, of course, it's been remarkably successful after centuries of warfare in Europe. They will be looking at this with great concern. Many states are, of course, part of NATO. The United States is currently acting against or talking against the interests of another NATO state in Denmark. Its position in relation to defending Europe should there be further Russian aggression is now ambiguous. So the EU as such has states that are part of these other blocs, and of course a very important trading bloc for everyone. And when the EU speaks, it speaks with a combined voice, but of course, must work by agreement and the like. But the concern about spheres of influence, the European Union has never been a military sphere of influence in the same way that China and Russia and the United States are now operating. And we don't know.
Alistair Burt, I'm afraid we're going to have to end it there, but we really appreciate your time this afternoon. Former Foreign Office Minister Alistair Burt talking over extraordinary pictures of the continued prosecution of Nicolas Maduro.
I know, really incredible. Well, look, stay with us. We'll bring you as much of that as we can. This is Good Afternoon Britain. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll continue with all of the coverage. Stay here, but first, let's get an update with the weather where you are.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another cold one out there, and there are more snow showers to come in places. For the vast majority, though, today is just going to be a cold and sunny day. Why is it cold? Well, the air is coming down from the north. Weather systems are gathering out west, and they will start to bring a bit of a change over the next day or so. But for most, say, today is fine and sunny but chilly. We've still got some snow showers coming into West Wales, southwest England and eastern England, and snow showers continuing to feed in on that northerly wind across northern Scotland. So we do have Met Office yellow ice and snow warnings still in place. Temperatures getting above freezing for most areas, but not by much, and it certainly feels pretty chilly out there, especially if you've got the breeze, which will continue to feed some snow showers into eastern England, West Wales and northern Scotland overnight. Wherever we've got the showers, there's the potential for things to be really quite icy as temperatures very rapidly drop back below freezing. Not too many showers today for Northern Ireland, and we'll see more cloud and some sleety showers moving in here through the evening time. Still some snow showers coming into West Wales, southwest England as we head into the evening time too, and they'll continue through the night. At the same time, we are going to see some wet weather coming into western Scotland. Now, this will slowly start to lift the temperatures, but perhaps not quick enough to stop the snow coming in here and things again turning icy, pushing into parts of southern Scotland by the end of the night. Further south, it's generally going to be a dry night, and it will be another cold one with a widespread hard frost, which means, again, it could be icy for Tuesday morning's commute. And in this zone over northern England, southern Scotland, we may well wake up to a light covering of snow, and further snow then coming in during Tuesday across Scotland, whereas for England, Wales and Northern Ireland, we'll start to see, yes, a bit of hill snow, but some outbreaks of rain at lower levels. In the south, largely dry and sunny again, but still cold.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a brand new year, and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date.
£85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate.
An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, here at Holbrook Animal Rescue, they're being forced to relocate, and if they can't find a suitable alternative, they'll even be at risk of closing. And I've seen the amazing work that they've done here. Just earlier we met a dog called Essie who has just found her almost possible forever home literally in the time that we were here. She only came here a couple of days ago, so it's really great work that they do for all animals. Like this one here, this is Torn, he's just a puppy, and I'm also joined by Laura Santini, who runs the shelter. Tell us a bit about Torn here.
So this is just a little fellow that came in, no fault of his own. The people just couldn't cope with him. So he's lively, and he's a half shepherd, half Labrador.
What kind of impact would the possible relocation or even closure have on dogs like this one and all the other animals you have here?
Well, simply that we wouldn't be able to take them. So if the next one comes up like this and we've got nowhere to go, then we just can't take them, obviously. So what happens to them at that point, I don't know, because we don't just take beautiful pups like this. We take the old and the sick and the dogs that other people don't necessarily want to take. So I can't imagine what would happen to some of them. So I don't know. It's sad. It's just a sad situation.
And you've had quite a lot of support from the community here in trying to relocate. What's been there for you in terms of support?
They're absolutely incredible. They've sent 1,000 letters into the council to try and support us and help us and let everyone see the light that, you know, you do actually need animal sanctuaries around. You can't shut them all down. We're always getting phone calls saying how much people like what we do and hope we get our planning appeal when it goes through and things like that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 1 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of January. I'm Nana Akua.
And I'm Tom Harwood. Now, dramatic scenes from New York as the Venezuelan president, or former president, I should say, Nicolas Maduro, is transferred from Brooklyn to Manhattan for his court hearing.
And that ousted Venezuelan president will be facing charges of drug trafficking, importing cocaine and other weapons charges. He will appear in a Manhattan courthouse in the next few hours alongside his wife.
It comes as Donald Trump doubles down on the Don Road Doctrine, America's new control of Venezuela.
Don't ask me who's in charge, because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It's we're in charge.
Yes, overnight, the United States president threatens Venezuela's new leader with a fate worse than the ousted leader Nicolas Maduro's. If she doesn't do what's right, that is. And that's not all.
Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
Could Colombia be next in line for the fire and fury of the resurgently interventionist America? President Trump turns his eyes to more countries as he hits out at South America and their drug trafficking. He's also turning his eyes north to the Arctic Circle.
Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Yes, that was Donald Trump towards the end of last month, claiming he needs American control of Greenland for defence, as Denmark's Prime Minister now urges him to stop making threats to take over their Arctic territory.
Sir Keir Starmer tells GB News that he will back Greenland's sovereignty. He also has a message for Nigel Farage. He calls him slippery. Stay tuned for the full interview.
We will stop this. We will smash the gangs.
I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders.
Border officers will now seize small boat migrants' phones without arrest to gather intelligence in the latest crackdown on Channel smugglers.
And wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures, in case you hadn't already noticed. Widespread ice warnings just as people return to work or indeed school after Christmas.
We're here in snowy Scarborough as those weather alerts are in place across Britain for snow and ice.
Oh. So we've just brought you the fascinating images of Maduro and his wife, of course, being taken to court for their hearing. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. We'll obviously carry on following that. But it was a fascinating show of American strength and dominance. But it did sort of have those smacks of the O.J. Simpson. Do you remember that one where they had all,
they were chasing after
and they had all the overhead cameras, they had
Yes.
everything, and he was literally there. They had all the cameras, all the shots, all the angles.
I couldn't believe how many cameras there were. I mean, I sort of was having an out-of-body experience for a moment presenting that, where I'm like, is this a television programme, or have I fallen into some parallel world where I'm actually just watching a movie? I mean, it was incredibly cinematic, clearly designed not just for an American domestic audience or indeed a GB News audience here in Britain, but also perhaps as a warning sign to dictators and demagogues around the world. Well, this could be you if you don't toe the line.
Although you say that, and it's almost as though he, in a sense, is behaving like a dictator and a demagogue, as it were. So if any of them start complaining, then it's sort of a take a look in the mirror moment. But one of the things that yesterday Donald Trump spoke about, before they went off, before the American troops went off and did the assault on Venezuela, he said, good luck and Godspeed, as though it was a movie. Yeah. And I do think sometimes Donald Trump acts as though he is in some sort of movie and he sees the American flag and the whole patriotism and all that, and it does feel like it's slightly surreal.
But I think that sometimes that's what Americans want their presidents to be. I mean, let's not forget that Ronald Reagan, president for 8 years during the 1980s, was indeed a movie actor in a previous life. Actually, he's also the only US president to have ever been a trade union leader, because he was president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh, fair enough.
But I think that there is that sort of intrinsic will for a leader, especially a president who sort of sits above. And of course, the decisions on the ground, well, they're not being taken by Donald Trump. He's setting the overarching strategy. A lot of the details being done by people like Marco Rubio. Perhaps a sort of cinematic leadership is what the Americans are after.
Well, I think we could do with some sort of cinematic leadership here in the UK as well. I mean, I'd like to see something a bit more than... Because our movie would be somebody sitting on the fence, pretty much. That's all that would be, wouldn't it? Well, send us your thoughts, your comments at gbnews.com/your say, or scan the QR code. But let's get your latest news headlines now.
Very good afternoon. It's just gone 1 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. As you've just been hearing, the former Venezuelan President Maduro has been transferred to a New York court by helicopter and will appear this afternoon. Maduro is facing weapons and drug charges in New York after he was captured by US forces over the weekend. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has issued a stark warning to Venezuelan's interim leader, urging her to comply with his wishes. The US leader has threatened a fate worse than the ousted Maduro's if she doesn't do what's right. Back in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer faces a revolt as MPs demand that he condemns the US's attack on Venezuela. GB News spoke to Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Migration and Citizenship, Mike Tapp, about the attack earlier.
Really important for the Venezuelan people that this dictator has been removed. You know, he arrested political dissidents, he tortured, he used sexual violence. Venezuela is safer without him. What we need now is a peaceful, safe transition and democratic transition for the Venezuelan people. And we're really clear that this country, the very foundations of this country, are international law and rules-based system, and that hasn't changed.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has said that he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump threatened to annex Greenland. The Prime Minister added that his Danish counterpart, Mette Frederiksen, was right to refuse the US President any claim to the territory. That's as Ms Frederiksen said it makes absolutely no sense and the US has no right to annex any of the 3 nations in the Danish kingdom. President Trump has repeatedly advocated for a self-governing Danish territory to become part of the United States because of its mineral wealth and strategic location. Now, elsewhere, US media is reporting that Vice President J.D. Vance's home in Ohio has been attacked. Local media outlets have said that several windows at the home were destroyed as police secured the scene. Law enforcement claimed that at least one person is in custody for the break-in. The Ohio property is the primal residence for the second family outside of their Washington, D.C. home at the Naval Observatory. It is not believed that they were at home during the incident. Hundreds of schools have been shut and flights cancelled today as weather warnings remain in force, with the snow bringing disruption. Sub-zero temperatures are proving to be a key issue as millions return to work and school after the holidays. Forecasters warn of heavy snowfall, dangerous travel conditions and rural communities potentially being cut off, while health officials urge people to check on the elderly and the vulnerable. Sporting news, Ruben Amorim has been sacked by Manchester United. The news comes just 24 hours after the 40-year-old took aim at the club's hierarchy following their 1-1 draw with Leeds on Sunday. The Red Devils only hired the Portuguese coach in November 2024, following the departure of Erik ten Hag. It's been named that Darren Fletcher will take charge of Wednesday's Premier League game against Burnley. Now, border powers toughen as new laws on phone grabbing take effect. From today, officers can seize mobile phones and SIM cards from migrants without making an arrest, aiming to crack down on people smugglers behind channel crossings. The government says that the measures will speed up intelligence gathering, while critics argue that this offers cosmetic changes without a real deterrent. Shadow Minister of State for Illegal Immigration, Crime and Policing Matt Vickers told GB News that this was just tinkering around the edges.
People who break into this country, who come in illegally, without permission, without the passport, who have no right to be here, should be removed. That's how you solve this. Everybody at home knows it. It's a common sense approach, and we know it works because we tested it when we had that agreement in place with Albania. It was one of the top places from which people were arriving in the country. We stopped those people coming, we removed them straight away, and all of a sudden, 93% less of them were arriving in this country. We need a deterrent, we need it in place. Everything else is tinkering around the edges.
And from Bond to Hogwarts, a Scottish motor museum says that its collection of iconic movie props could be worth millions. The privately owned museum near Falkirk attracts around 10,000 visitors per year and gained charity status in 2012. It's currently exhibiting a working replica of the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car, a van featured in Only Fools and Horses, and a Ford Anglia used as the flying car in the Harry Potter films. Proud owner Colin Anderson says that after collecting for 21 years, the main attraction is definitely the Lotus Esprit from James Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in just under half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.346 and €1.152. The price of gold is £3,279.09 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,967 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Now, we've just brought you dramatic scenes from New York, where ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has arrived at a Manhattan courthouse where he is to face charges of narco-terrorism, drug trafficking and money laundering.
Well, our very own Charlie Peters joins us in the studio because, Charlie, this is a significant moment, not just in sort of the legal process of this, but also in the imagery, what's being projected to the world.
As you said, Tom, highly cinematic, a display of American legal and military and law enforcement power for the world to take in, and a message, I think, to anyone in Venezuela still thinking of perhaps launching a moment of anti-imperialist resistance to say, watch it or you might be next. And I can tell you now that the judge who will oversee Maduro's first court appearance is Alvin K. Hellerstein. He's a 92-year-old.
Oh, wow.
He will be the federal judge in the Southern District of New York, he was nominated and confirmed by President Bill Clinton in 1998. He's been a senior judge in this district since 2011, has presided over many cases relating to the 9/11 terrorist attacks and also lots of other cases, high-profile cases involving terrorism and national security, doing that well into his 90s now, 92 years old. And it's crucial also to note that over the summer, he was involved in a prosecution against a Venezuelan general, which is Hugo Caraval Barrios, who was a former diplomat and general. He was arrested in 2021 in Madrid, eventually extradited to the United States. He pleaded guilty to drug trafficking and narco-terrorism charges last year, before the 92-year-old Hellerstein. So he has some experience in dealing with these senior Maduro regime officials. He's also been involved in cases related to Donald Trump as well, the Michael Cohen case, the hush money case, as it's known in the United States, about the Stormy Daniels, the adult film actress, money paid towards her, saying that those were not official acts of his presidency. He's also been involved in other decisions around Venezuela. For example, he also issued a ruling frustrating Donald Trump, stopping his administration from deporting Venezuelans under the Alien Enemies Act, and also then criticised the administration for those deportations to a foreign jail, which he said was done with faint hopes of due process, of course, a key part of the American-US Constitution, or indeed return. So he will have oversight of this process. He's previously served in the US Army's Judge Advocate General's Corps, so he was an Army lawyer at one point as well. Decades in private practice, but the best part of a quarter century in federal roles since 1998, and now will take on this most senior court case, surely what will be the most senior court appearance in Manhattan, certainly this year. We're expecting Nicolas Maduro and his wife to appear later in the next 5 hours or so, around 5 p.m. our time. And the courthouse is now open, not just for those detained awaiting trial, but also for the reporters who are starting to file into court 26A. And, of course, we'll be across all of that as it develops.
And of course, this isn't the first time, because Donald Trump did try to get Nicolas Maduro in 2020 when he was the president then. But this time, of course, he's added the wife in the charges as well. So Donald Trump has been after Nicolas Maduro for a while.
Yes, and doubled that bounty to $50 million. He was joking on Saturday in his press conference, Nana, during your programme, when Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was speaking. He said, you know what, we don't have to pay that $50 million anymore. We did it ourselves. I think they spent a bit more than $50 million to get there in the end with that extraordinary and immense military operation to abduct him from his own bedroom, conducted without any American serious injuries and indeed no fatalities. But Nicolas Maduro in cuffs in a Manhattan courthouse, appearing perhaps without 4 hours now.
Well, yes, maybe 40 people may have been killed in the Venezuelan side, yeah. But we don't know. A lot of them, they say, were the armed forces and people like that, but we don't know.
We haven't seen any supporting evidence for those claims from Venezuelan officials.
Oh. Well, thank you very much indeed. Let's move on now with the author and chief US correspondent for The Telegraph, Rob Crilly. Rob, thanks indeed for joining us. I mean, these are extraordinary images that we've been seeing live in the last hour, replaying now for anyone who might have missed it. What does this mean for perhaps a new phase of Donald Trump's presidency? Is this still legitimately America first, or has there been a sort of return to neoconservatism?
Two big questions there. Look, I think we saw the makings of this last month when the White House unveiled its new national security strategy, which put the Western Hemisphere absolutely at the heart of everything it's doing. You know, they talk about the Monroe Doctrine. Mr. Trump himself joked about the Donroe Doctrine on Saturday. This is the idea that the US is absolutely in charge of the Americas, absolutely in charge of the Western Hemisphere. And the idea is that it's in America's interests to make sure that the likes of China, Iran, cannot get their tentacles into the Americas. And this is very much one of the reasons that the US went into Venezuela in the way that it did. So that is how the administration sees the world. But I think you're right. There are real concerns in the MAGA coalition that brought Donald Trump to power, that this is exactly the sort of thing that American voters did not want to see happening, that America First was meant to stop these kinds of foreign entanglements. We've had the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, the firebrand member of Congress, who's very much one of Donald Trump's closest allies, is going to be stepping down, what is it, the 5th today from Congress, because she's fallen out with President Trump on some of these things. She, at the weekend, spelled out that this was not what her supporters wanted to see. And I think the key thing here is going to be what happens next. If Maduro can go on trial in New York, if they can avoid a power vacuum developing in Venezuela, then I think Mr. Trump will call this a huge success and hope that his supporters stay behind him.
But you know what, though? You say that, but Donald Trump says that this is because of the drugs that have been flooding America from Venezuela, even though a lot of people would argue that's not such a high percentage. But also, American companies missed out when Maduro came into power, because a lot of them, the oil companies in particular, were closed down, and Venezuela kept a lot of the oil. So Trump would argue that he's protecting the American interests and redressing the balance, and that is all part of America first.
Yeah, and look, I think what it will ultimately come down to is that America first is whatever Donald Trump decides it to be on any given day or week. You know, we saw that when he went into Iran. Again, the same voices were very concerned about the US sending warplanes to bomb targets in Iran. But of course, the case was made that actually taking out any sort of nuclear program, weapons of mass destruction capability in Iran was very much in US interest. I think if you listen to Steve Bannon, for example, who is another one of the rather more skeptical members of the Trump coalition, his problem over the weekend was not that this operation happened. He declared it a success, but he raised questions about the way it had been framed. What is the benefit of this operation? Is it the drugs? Now, as you've mentioned, if you are serious about stopping drugs coming into the US, Mexico might be your #1 target. And Donald Trump rather gave the game away that it was all about the oil when he was talking about this at his press conference on Saturday. So I think there have been some mixed messages, first of all, about the reasons for going. And then secondly, I think perhaps more worryingly yesterday, very mixed messages coming from Donald Trump and his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, about who was now actually running Venezuela. Is it the US, as Donald Trump suggested, or is it the vice president now elevated to president, working under the leverage, shall we say, of the United States? So there's some problems with messaging, I think, at the moment.
But clearly there is what Donald Trump saw as an American interest there in Venezuela. As Nana says, these American oil companies, nationalisation taking place, Donald Trump sees it very much that this was American investment, American infrastructure stolen from America and then run into the ground by a socialist regime in Venezuela. Clearly Marco Rubio also feeling, as the son of Cuban refugees, that this sort of Cuba-Venezuela axis of socialism has been disastrous for the wider Americas. It does, however, raise questions about what happens next. Where is next? Is this going to stop at Venezuela? Donald Trump has spoken about the Panama Canal, something built by Americans, latterly seized by Panama. Donald Trump seeing very much in the same vein that American oil investment was taken away from America, that the Panama Canal was too. I mean, could that be next on the list?
Yeah, I mean, again, I come back to the national security strategy published last month. These are very much the types of questions that are raised by that document, Panama. We've had talk about Greenland as well, which would be seen as on the edge of the Western Hemisphere, a very strategic location, also rich in some of the rare earth minerals that the US is rather short on, as China clamps down on its control. So these are very real questions. And I think one point I would make is the New York Times reporting last night that one of the reasons Donald Trump finally decided on action was that he was sick and tired of seeing Nicolas Maduro dancing on television in mockery of Donald Trump's threats, rather suggesting that Mr. Trump was bluffing. So, you know, as we've talked about for the past 10 years, you don't necessarily have to take Donald Trump literally, but you certainly have to take him seriously when he makes these sorts of comments and threats.
Absolutely. Rob Crilly, thank you very much. He's a correspondent for The Telegraph. Yes, I think it was Donald Trump saw Nicolas Maduro put something on X or something that he wasn't happy with, and that was the final straw. But to be fair to Donald Trump, he has been after Maduro since 2020. It's not just a one-off, oh, let's get him now. And his reasoning, I think, in terms of drugs might be sound, but in terms of oil, I think it is perfectly sound. And the Venezuelans themselves, I spoke to a woman who's the CEO for Healing Venezuela, and they had mixed feelings, but they really felt they couldn't go on in the vein that they had been.
Well, let's not forget, 80% of them voted against Maduro, and yet he's stuck in power with the help of the military. Well, don't forget, friends of GB News can vote in today's poll for free by scanning the QR code on the screen, just by Nana's shoulder over there, or by visiting gbnews.com/you decide.
And today we're asking, would you support Donald Trump taking further military action? Currently, 87% of you say yes, 11% of you say no.
Well, if Bev Turner's return to Britain's newsroom this morning wasn't enough for you, you can get more from her on The Late Show Live tonight at midnight. As we've been talking about, there is much American news that impacts the United Kingdom. Much to discuss.
Right, well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures and widespread ice warnings, just as people return to work and indeed school after Christmas. But after the break...
You look up and down the coast.
You probably can't hear it, but Donald Trump is claiming that he needs America to control Greenland for defence. Once again, Starmer tells GB News he backs Greenland's sovereignty. We'll have more on that next.
All of that and indeed more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdley, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 26 minutes past 1. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has said he stands with Denmark against Donald Trump after the US president threatened to annex Greenland.
The Prime Minister added that his Danish counterpart, Mette Frederiksen, was right to refuse the US president any claim to the territory.
Well, let's speak to our political editor, Christopher Hope, because, Christopher, you've been speaking with the Prime Minister this morning, and perhaps an unexpected statement there from the Prime Minister against the US president.
That's right. Hi, Tom. Hi, Nana. Yeah, welcome to Reading, where we've been talking to the Prime Minister for the first time. His first interview for 2026, talking to us for GB News. We covered all sorts of areas, the issue of Greenland, its future, the issue, of course, of Venezuela and Nigel Farage, and also the family farms tax and business rates. And here's what he told GB News moments ago. Prime Minister, thank you for joining us today on GB News. If you won't condemn Donald Trump over Venezuela, how can we lecture Russia over its invasion of Ukraine, or if China takes action against Taiwan?
Well, the position of this government is that what we need in Venezuela is a peaceful transition to democracy. That was our position before this weekend. It remains our position. The president was illegitimate and caused untold misery across Venezuela. International law is the framework, is the anchor or the benchmark against which we judge the actions of all other governments. And it is, of course, for the US to justify the action that it has taken. It is not straightforward, it is complicated, and even today there are further developments. But I won't shy away from the fact that international law is the framework and is the benchmark.
If the US invades Greenland, then what?
Well, the future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. And for Greenland and the future of Denmark only. And Denmark is a very close ally of the UK, both in Europe and in NATO, and it's very important that we're clear about the principles applicable to here. Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must determine the future of Greenland and nobody else.
Are Labour critics of Venezuela and Donald Trump wrong?
Well, look, people will take different positions on this, but I think the vast majority of Labour voters and supporters, in fact the vast majority of people across the country, would say the most important thing is that peaceful transition to democracy. It's been years in the waiting, and now we need a period of stabilisation, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the most important thing is that transition to democracy in Venezuela.
Can I ask you about the U-turn on the family farm tax before Christmas? Why did you do it?
The principle of applying inheritance tax to farms is obviously the right principle, but I listened to those that had concerns about where the threshold was, including the president of the NFU and the ex-president of the NFU, listened carefully to what they had to say and determined that we should adjust the threshold, not the principle, but the threshold, and that was the right thing to do.
Are pubs next? Are you banned from your local?
Well, in relation to business rates, we're working with the sector, particularly in hospitality. Obviously, there were reductions in place because of COVID, which were going to come to an end. There are then transitional provisions to help. The overall rating levels is going down, but I do acknowledge for pubs and others that the re-evaluation means that they will struggle in relation to the business rates applicable to them. That's why we're working with them, and also other measures. They want more freedom for licensing. They want more freedom to actually open for longer, and we're very open to that discussion with them.
And just finally, on Nigel Farage, you criticised him yesterday in a TV interview. He's miles ahead in the polls. What's he got that you haven't got? And what's your message to GB News viewers who think he will be a better Prime Minister than you are?
Well, my message would be that Nigel Farage says a lot of things that aren't true and don't come to fruition. So he stood in front of your viewers in the Brexit referendum and said, if we leave the EU, migration will come down. Well, it didn't come down. It quadrupled. The Boris Johnson wave. He said if we leave the EU, you'd have £350 million a week for the NHS. That didn't turn out to be the case. And he said if we left the EU, we'd cut lots of red tape. Try telling that to anyone who is dealing and doing business with the EU. So what you get with Nigel Farage is a lot of slippery things that are said, but when you hold them up to the light, they're not actually true. And peddling falsehoods is no way to solve the problems of this country.
Sir Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir Keir Starmer there with his first interview with GB News for 2026. He says in summary there that it's complicated what's happening in Venezuela. Complicated for the UK, of course, because America is one of our major allies on the international stage. We can't be seen to condemn them. But equally on Greenland, which is, of course, a Danish protectorate, that country's sovereignty will be protected. And the clear warning there from the Prime Minister, take no action against Denmark. And on other areas too, we heard there from Labour critics. He said he can take different positions on Venezuela. On the family farm tax, he now does say that the principle of inheritance tax on family farms is correct, but the threshold went up to £5 million for a couple before Christmas. But he did show some indication of a plan for pubs. He says he recognises that those pubs will suffer when the relief on business rates is lifted that was put in there during COVID. But he says they're looking at other measures, notably freedom for licensing and maybe opening for longer. So looks like we're going to see some form of package for pubs shortly and being worked on now in number 10. Just finally on Nigel Farage, we are seeing this fight being taken to Nigel Farage and Reform UK by the Prime Minister. He says there that Farage says lots of slippery things, he says, some things which aren't true. Well, I'm sure Nigel Farage will contest that one. And he's peddling falsehoods, and that's not no way to solve the problems of this country. So a real attack there on Nigel Farage. No question, Keir Starmer thinks the main opponent at the election expected in 2029 is Nigel Farage.
Thank you very much, Christopher Hope. I noticed he didn't answer whether he was banned from his local pub, though, which I would have liked to have heard.
No. Yeah, well,
I did ask, yeah.
He didn't answer, did he?
Well, we'll catch up with you more later in the programme, of course, but for now, thanks very much, Chopper. Well, much more still to come on Good Afternoon Britain.
Yes, wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures and widespread ice warnings just as people return to work and return to school after the Christmas break.
All of that and indeed much more to come after your very latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon. The latest headlines just after 1:30. Former Venezuelan President Maduro has been transferred to a New York court and is due to appear this afternoon. Maduro is facing weapons and drug charges after he was captured by US forces over the weekend. Also in the States, US media is reporting that Vice President J.D. Vance's home in Ohio has been attacked. Local media outlets reported that several windows at the home were destroyed as the police secured the scene. From the sporting world, Ruben Amorim has been sacked by Manchester United. The news comes just 24 hours after the 40-year-old took aim at the club's hierarchy following their draw with Leeds on Sunday. And take care today as winter bites back just as the country clocks back on. Sub-zero temperatures and a web of snow and ice warnings are causing disruption as hundreds of schools have shut and flights are delayed. Those are the latest headlines for now. More on those stories at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Good afternoon, Britain. 35 minutes after 1 o'clock. Thank you, Sophia. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, dramatic scenes from New York as the Venezuelan president, or I should say former Venezuelan president, dictator Nicolas Maduro, transferred from a Brooklyn detention centre to a Manhattan courthouse.
Well, all that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another cold one out there, and there are more snow showers to come in places. For the vast majority, though, today is just going to be a cold and sunny day. Why is it cold? Well, the air is coming down from the north. Weather systems are gathering out west, and they will start to bring a bit of a change over the next day or so. But for most, say, today is fine and sunny but chilly. We've still got some snow showers coming into West Wales, southwest England and eastern England, and snow showers continuing to feed in on that northerly wind across northern Scotland. So we do have Met Office yellow ice and snow warnings still in place. Temperatures getting above freezing for most areas, but not by much, and it certainly feels pretty chilly out there, especially if you've got the breeze, which will continue to feed some snow showers into eastern England, West Wales and northern Scotland overnight. Wherever we've got the showers, there's the potential for things to be really quite icy as temperatures very rapidly drop back below freezing. Not too many showers today for Northern Ireland, and we'll see more cloud and some sleety showers moving in here through the evening time. Still some snow showers coming into West Wales, southwest England as we head into the evening time too. And they'll continue through the night. At the same time, we are going to see some wet weather coming into western Scotland. Now, this will slowly start to lift the temperatures, but perhaps not quick enough to stop the snow coming in here and things, again, turning icy, pushing into parts of southern Scotland by the end of the night. Further south, it's generally going to be a dry night, and it will be another cold one with a widespread hard frost, which means, again, it could be icy for Tuesday morning's commute. And in this zone over northern England, southern Scotland, we may well wake up to a light covering of snow, and further snow then coming in during Tuesday across Scotland. Whereas for England, Wales and Northern Ireland, we'll start to see, yes, a bit of hill snow, but some outbreaks of rain at lower levels. In the south, largely dry and sunny again, but still cold.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the A90 southbound, an HGV is blocking lane 2 between Goval and Crabestone, so expect hold-ups. On the M53 southbound, the entry slip at junction 4 is shut after a crash, with all lanes closed. In Staffordshire, the A50 westbound is closed for road management between the A522 and the A521 at Blythebridge East. In Milton Keynes, the M1 southbound between junction 14 and junction 13 has an incident with 2 lanes closed and delays of around 20 minutes. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Cross Country report disruption on some routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 1, and before we move on, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. 2026 could be on us, with an incredible £85,000 to be won.
That's about £7,000 a month extra to spend for a whole year. All of that could be yours. Here are the details.
It's a brand new year, and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date.
£85,000 in tax-free cash to make your new year the best yet.
And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate.
Imagine what the coming year could look like for you with a whopping £85,000 in the bank.
You can have the complete Lapland experience all in one place by visiting the Northern Lights Village.
Or just safe in the knowledge that this year is on us.
An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, let's return to that breaking news. The dramatic scenes from New York, where ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has arrived at a Manhattan courthouse where he is to face charges of narco-terrorism, drug trafficking and money laundering.
Well, our very own Charlie Peters is with us in the studio. And Charlie, just while we're looking at these latest pictures on screen, I mean, it is just heavy with symbolism.
It is. You can see a representative there from the Drug Enforcement Administration in who have been central to these justice proceedings, as the US would like it to be framed and understood, that this was a abduction process carried out by Delta Force and the Night Stalkers of the specialist aviation regiments, done in order to prevent the flow of drugs into the United States. And that's why the DEA and other DOJ officials are going to be front and centre throughout these proceedings. But we should note, of course, that since the dramatic and highly successful military operation in the early hours of Saturday morning, Donald Trump has now made several interventions in the US and international media, as has the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, where they've been speaking about oil, they've been speaking about Russia and China, about their dwindling influence in the region, about Russia as well. Russia, one of the many countries highly critical of these actions. And without any irony, the Kremlin condemned it as a breach of international law. And we are hearing today that with the appearance of Nicolas Maduro and his wife at this Manhattan courthouse on Worth Street in the Southern District of New York, the case will be overseen by 92-year-old judge Alvin Hellerstein. And he's dealt with a lot of high-profile terrorism and national security cases, even well into his 90s. He most recently, when it comes to Venezuela, dealt with a case of a former general and intelligence chief, Hugo Barrios, who pleaded guilty before that judge to charges related to narco-terrorism and drug trafficking. But I just want to bring us beyond the scenes on the streets of New York right now to the wider strategic picture that the United States is involved with right now, because I can tell you now that Colombia's defense minister, Pedro Sanchez, has just given an interview to the New York Times, and he said that he remained in permanent communication with the United States on its counter-narcotics efforts, and that the countries will continue to have a very close relationship. Pedro Sanchez's comments there are particularly important because when Donald Trump was asked yesterday whether his administration could carry out a similar operation as it did in Venezuela in Colombia, Trump said on Sunday, "It sounds good to me." Colombia's armed forces, though, Pedro Sanchez has said, remained focus on protecting the country's sovereignty. And just before we move on, Trump has also made similar comments about Cuba, saying that the country, it's going down for the count. He is pointing his proverbial rifles in all directions at the moment. Plenty of US military efforts currently relocating throughout Europe and indeed the Middle East. We've seen heavy cargo planes, specialist equipment, including some of the helicopters that were used, of the same variety that were used in Venezuela, currently in the United Kingdom, potentially to be deployed on an oil tanker that was chased by US Coast Guard, currently in the North Atlantic. And Iran obviously very much central to discussions. People don't know where Donald Trump could strike next, but there is still a feeling that as one deposed president faced American justice in Manhattan, the Pentagon could be preparing more actions very shortly.
It's ironic, isn't it, coming from Russia, that they have the audacity to try and start talking about international law. We just heard from Keir Starmer as well, and he's saying that Denmark, they are sovereign, and they are sovereign to Greenland. Is he wise to take that solid stance, or should he just butt out and say nothing?
The United Kingdom relies very much on Denmark for a wide range of military actions. The Danish Special Forces have a very close relationship with the United Kingdom's counterparts. And when Donald Trump said something like, "We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security," when he tells that to reporters, that's going to set off alarm bells in NATO and, of course, with European leaders. I think it's highly understandable for Sir Keir Starmer to come to the defence of a close NATO ally.
And yet, of course, as the Arctic Circle becomes ever more active, as Russian vessels continue to trail the area, and, of course, as the ice melts and it becomes a more viable trade route, I mean, this area is going to be more and more an area of interest for frankly, every great power.
Highly contested, and it's vital that Europe perhaps doesn't have to rely so much on American power to protect it.
All right, thank you very much, Charlie Peters. Really good to talk to you. Now, don't forget, friends of GB News can vote in today's poll for free by scanning the QR code on the screen. That'll appear in a matter of moments' time. There you go. Or you can visit gbnews.com/you decide. And today, would you support, we're asking, would you support Donald Trump taking further military action?
Yes, currently 87% say yes, 11% say no. So make your vote. Oh! 13% say
just
no.
moved just right now.
Changed just as we spoke. Goodness me. Well, do keep your votes coming in. It's changing literally by the second.
And if Bev Turner's return to Britain's newsroom this morning wasn't enough for you, you can get even more of her on The Late Show live tonight at midnight. And there is so much to discuss.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Still plenty more to come on today's busy show.
Yes, don't forget to wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures and widespread ice warnings just as people return to work and school after Christmas.
But if you're in search of some holiday sunshine on a day like today, you might well be. Here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're after some warmer weather, Greece at the moment seeing temperatures above average. Still the risk of some showers across the Canary Islands at the moment and parts of Madeira. Perhaps southern Spain also seeing 1 or 2 showers, but generally some bright skies around. Heavier rain for parts of Italy on Tuesday. Could be thundery at times, and then the risk of some showers into Greece, but temperatures well above average for the time of year. And it remains so here for the next few days until eventually starting to cool down.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
9:30.
It is indeed.
And as the new year approaches, we've got, for the very first time, our GB News charity calendar. It's on sale, and 100% of the price. I should point out, actually, the pictures were taken by you and voted for by you because we've got so many entries. So you've made this. 100% of the profits go to our 2025 charity partner, which is the London Taxi Drivers Charity for Children. And that actually is also proudly supported by Her Majesty the Queen. Really, really lovely
But look, I'm just
pictures.
going to take... There's a... Oh, hold on a sec. There we go. Look, how lovely are those pictures?
It's really nice. It's what is most important is the fact that, as we say, 100% of the money is going to charity. If you pick one up at the GB News shop online, and the chairman of the Taxi Drivers Charity for London is Anthony Moore and is here. It's great to see you.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about what the charity does.
We do several events a year. We take kids to the seaside as a group of taxis. So this year we had 80 taxis transferring around about 200 children. We went to the zoo this year, and so we've done that as an event. Everybody gives up their time. The taxi drivers just give up their time, all just so that the kids can have a good time. We've got our Christmas party, or the Mad Hatters party, that's in January, and we've got now 700 and... We've had to limit the numbers this year. We've got 720 children coming at the moment.
Wow.
But they will be entertained by singers, dancers. We've got the King's Welsh Guards turning up to give them the dimensions of the dance floor, so they're coming to do, in their full regalia, they hang around, hats on children, photographs. So, we do several things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It says 10 minutes to 2 o'clock, and it has been a freezing return to normal for millions across the UK today, with sub-zero temperatures and a web of snow and ice warnings already causing disruption.
Well, forecasters say the worst may still be ahead, with hazardous travel conditions and the risk of some communities being cut off entirely.
But whilst the cold snap is creating real challenges, it's also bringing moments of winter joy. In East Belfast, children have been making the most of the snow sledging and building snowmen on the Stormont estate.
Elsewhere, the picture is a little less playful. In Aberdeen, heavy snowfall has made driving treacherous, with icy roads causing serious concern for motorists.
And in West Sussex, drone footage shows Clayton Hill blanketed in snow, offering a stark reminder of just how widespread this cold spell has become.
But let's go to snowy Scarborough now, where our very own Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley can join us. Anna, gosh, it's started snowing again.
Oh!
Good afternoon, Tom and Nana, and yes, welcome to snowy Scarborough. You mentioned there people out and about enjoying the weather. Some people have gone as far to actually surf here, swim and paddleboard, as we've seen. It may be a bit too far out to sea, but certainly people are out in the sea. It's around 0 degrees here. Many schools are closed across the region, also across the country, due to these weather conditions. So we have seen children out using the bucket and spade for snow as well as sand as well, and enjoying it. Of course, large swathes of Britain have been covered by this weather warning, and a yellow weather warning for snow and ice. And with that, that's brought travel chaos to some areas. We know that Liverpool John Lennon Airport, the runway is currently closed due to the weather. Many flights being cancelled or delayed as a result. It's also impacted the roads. We've seen plenty of gritters around here in Scarborough, but other more rural areas in North Yorkshire where the gritters can't get, or that snow is falling, they are likely to be impacted by that. Last time we were out covering the snow, we were in Filey, and we were seeing how the farmers were out on their tractors as well, pulling vans and lorries so they could get out of these weather conditions. Of course, as well, the rail network being impacted, so it has had impact on travel. And as well as closed schools, but if you can get out and enjoy it, people are here. You can see here as well, it's not putting the dog walkers off, and the dogs are certainly enjoying it with their blankets on as well. So yeah, that is the snowy picture currently here from Scarborough.
All right, Anna Riley, lovely to see you. I bet your feet are cold. Are your feet cold? I'd have... No?
I've got thermal socks on, actually, and I've got some nice warm boots, so my feet are all right.
There you go. No such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing.
I can't imagine anything worse than being out there in the cold. I'd be so angry. My son Ivory was hoping his school was shut, but sadly it wasn't.
Well, do stay with us here on Good Afternoon Britain. Plenty more to come from not just in this country, but around the world. This after your weather forecast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The cold spell continues, slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight, a continued risk of ice, and for some there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. It won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too. Particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England, could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still, it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
From the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland. We're on an amazing Arctic adventure to celebrate our greatest cash giveaway, a simply stunning £85,000. And in 2026, we're giving you the chance to win it all.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of January. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Nana Akua. Dramatic scenes from New York as ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is transferred from a Brooklyn detention center to a Manhattan courthouse.
And he's been indicted on drug trafficking, cocaine and weapons charges, set to appear with his wife in that Manhattan courthouse in the next 3 hours.
Well, it all comes as Donald Trump doubles down on the Don Road doctrine, America's new control of Venezuela.
Don't ask me who's in charge because I'll give you an answer and it'll be very controversial.
What does that mean?
It means we're in charge.
Yes, overnight the US president threatens Venezuela's new leader with a fate worse than ousted leader Nicolas Maduro's if she doesn't do what's right. And that's not all.
Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
Could Colombia be next in line for the fire and fury of a resurgently interventionist America? Well, President Trump turns his eyes to more countries as he hits out against South American drug trafficking. He's also turning his eyes north to the Arctic Circle.
Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Trump claims he needs American control of Greenland for defence, as Denmark's Prime Minister urges him to stop making threats to take over their Arctic territory.
We will stop this. We will smash the gangs.
I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders.
Well, border officers will now seize small boat migrants' mobile phones without arrest, all to gather intelligence in the latest crackdown on Channel people smugglers.
And wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures and widespread ice warnings just as people return to work or school after Christmas.
It's a winter wonderland here in Scarborough, with some areas of the country getting up to 12 inches of snow. There's a yellow weather warning in place for snow and ice.
Oh, I love that it's just a picture-perfect place in Scarborough today.
I was kind of, well, I wasn't wishing, but I thought it would be quite entertaining if she sort of slipped in the snow. But I didn't want her to. But it would have been sort of, oh, that's funny. And then we'd all sort of film that, and then it would be replayed on social media, and it'd probably go viral.
Yeah, but also clip Nana Akua laughs
in the studio.
Lovely Anna Riley, and she suffers in the snow.
Oh,
you'd be the top of the clip then.
Oh, that's
I don't think it looks
so
like she's suffering so much. Actually, I think she's having a wonderful time because it does look magical. It makes me a bit jealous actually, because in London we don't have any snow at the moment.
Well, we can send you off somewhere where it's cold. You're all right with that?
I was in New York in November, and it did snow on my final day there, and that was glorious, so picturesque. I felt like I was in Home Alone 2.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, you'd probably be just about right for that movie. But seriously, I don't like the cold. I like the idea of how snow looks and how it looks like it's fun. But 5 minutes in there, my fingers are turning blue.
Well, then you're not
cold.
wearing gloves.
Yeah, I'm wearing gloves, and my fingers go blue. My feet are going cold, and I'm thinking I want to go sit inside with a cup of tea or a mulled wine and have a cake.
But doesn't it make the mulled wine, the hot cup of tea, or indeed the rice pudding all the nicer, all the sweeter for having been in the cold?
Rice pudding. Please, sir, can I have some more?
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, growing up, going out and sledging in the snow or messing around on the frozen ice and then coming back home and my mother would have made me a rice pudding with sort of a crispy top and raisins in it. Oh, gorgeous.
Raisins in it? I'd come back for a Horlicks. Remember Horlicks? Is that still about?
What's a Horlicks?
Do you know what a Horlicks is?
I don't know what a Horlicks is.
Oh, crikey. And I think on that bombshell...
Well, I'm about to Google what a Horlicks is.
Exactly. Let's get your latest news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Very good afternoon. It's just gone 2 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. Top story this afternoon, former Venezuelan President Maduro has been transferred to a New York court by helicopter and will appear this afternoon. Maduro is facing weapons and drug charges after he was captured by US forces over the weekend. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has issued a stark warning to Venezuela's interim leader, urging her to comply with his wishes. The US president has threatened a fate worse than ousted Maduro's if she doesn't do what's right. Back in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer faces a revolt as MPs demand that he condemns the US's attack on Venezuela. GB News' political editor Christopher Hope asked the PM if those critics were wrong earlier on.
Well, look, people will take different positions on this, but I think the vast majority of Labour voters and supporters, in fact the vast majority of people across the country, would say the most important thing is that peaceful transition to democracy. It's been years in the waiting, and now we need a period of stabilisation, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the most important thing is that transition to democracy in Venezuela.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has said that he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump threatened to annex Greenland. The Prime Minister added that his Danish counterpart, Mette Frederiksen, was right to refuse the US President any claim to the territory. That's as Ms Frederiksen said it makes absolutely no sense and the US has no right to annex any of the three nations in the Danish kingdom. President Trump has repeatedly advocated for the self-governing Danish territory to become part of the US because of its mineral wealth and strategic location. Also in the States, US media reports that Vice President J.D. Vance's home in Ohio has been attacked. Local media outlets reported that several windows at the house were destroyed as police secured the scene. Law enforcement claimed that at least one person is in custody for the break-in. The Ohio property is the primary residence for the second family outside of their Washington, D.C. home at the Naval Observatory. It is not believed that they were at home during the incident. Hundreds of schools have been shut and flights cancelled as weather warnings remain in force, with snow bringing much disruption. Sub-zero temperatures are proving to be a key issue as millions return to work and school this morning after the winter holidays. Forecasters warn of heavy snowfall, dangerous travel conditions and rural communities potentially being cut off, while health officials urge people to check on the elderly and the vulnerable. Sporting news, Ruben Amorim has been sacked by Manchester United. The news comes just 24 hours after the 40-year-old took aim at the club's hierarchy following their 1-1 draw with Leeds on Sunday. The Red Devils only hired the Portuguese coach in November 2024 following the departure of Erik ten Hag. Darren Fletcher will take charge of the Wednesday match against Burnley. Border powers toughen as new laws on phone grabbing take effect. From today, officers can seize mobile phones and SIM cards from migrants without making an arrest, aiming to crack down on people smugglers behind channel crossings. The government says that the measures will speed up intelligence gathering, while critics argue that this offers cosmetic changes without a real deterrent. Shadow Minister of State for Illegal Immigration, Crime and Policing, Matt Vickers, told GB News that this was just tinkering around the edge.
People who break into this country, who come in illegally, without permission, without the passport, who have no right to be here, should be removed. That's how you solve this. Everybody at home knows it. It's a common sense approach, and we know it works because we tested it when we had that agreement in place with Albania. It was one of the top places from which people were arriving in the country. We stopped those people coming, we removed them straight away, and all of a sudden, 93% less of them were arriving in this country. We need a deterrent, we need it in place. Everything else is tinkering around the edges.
And from Bond to Hogwarts, a Scottish motor museum says that its iconic collection of movie props could be worth millions. The privately owned museum near Falkirk attracts around 10,000 visitors per year and gained its charity status in 2012. It's currently exhibiting a working replica of the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car, a van featured in Only Fools and Horses, and a Ford Anglia used as the flying car in the Harry Potter films. Proud owner Colin Anderson says that after 21 years of collecting, the main attraction is the Lotus Esprit from James Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in just under half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.345 and 1.152 euros. The price of gold is £3,287.25 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,975 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 9 minutes past 2 o'clock and time to return to those dramatic scenes from New York, where the ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has arrived at a Manhattan courthouse where he's due to face charges of narco-terrorism later today, drug trafficking and money laundering.
Right, so GB News' senior political correspondent, Charlie Peters, national reporter, I made that up. Charlie Peters.
Catherine Forster.
I suddenly thought. No, but you join us now, Charlie. Let's get us up to date with what's happened.
Well, Nicolas Maduro, we're hearing from CNN that he is going to have a court-appointed attorney for his first New York court appearance, and that'll be an attorney called David Wickstrom. And this comes after Maduro, you're seeing there on your screens, coming out of a helicopter that took him from Brooklyn along with his wife, arrived at that courthouse just over an hour ago, having been flown over from Brooklyn and then transferred by armoured car convoy towards the Southern District in New York courthouse, where we are expecting, as I say, him to appear in the next 3 hours. Appearance likely around 5 p.m. our time. And of course, while these judicial proceedings are going ahead and we can see armed members of the Drug Enforcement Administration involved here, there is a wider strategic, military, geopolitical conversation going on with Donald Trump making all sorts of interventions about Cuba, about Colombia, about Greenland, the Danish kingdom, and other countries as well. I mean, on the morning that we saw that dramatic and highly successful, perfectly executed, really, military operation by the US Armed Forces just off the coast of Venezuela, swooping in and then abducting the man on your screens now in a raid that took just over 2 hours. But on the morning that was happening, all of the newspapers here in Britain were covering the warnings about his activities in Iran. Locked and loaded was Donald Trump's language, saying that he was standing by and ready to intervene amid the deteriorating situation in that country. But of course, he stunned the world by launching that dramatic operation into Caracas instead. And we learned on that press conference on Saturday as well, Nana, that he had waited 4 days for the perfect weather opportunity to move in. It's remarkable how often this can happen. You'll have colonels and generals and brigadiers all crowded around an operations room, preparing to launch airstrikes, artillery, the best special forces in the world, and they will all hold their breath and turn to a corporal in the corner who's the meteorological intelligence specialist. And really they have the final say on whether it's go or no, because it was a clouds issue, apparently, which held them up because they needed 150 aircraft over Caracas to take that man in the armoured car, Nicolas Maduro, and to bring him towards New York City.
There are rumours, though, that Delcy Rodriguez was in on it, though, so that she was part of it. She was aware of this and that there was a bit of an inside job as well.
Yes, and the opposition leader who won the Nobel Peace Prize, Maria Machado, she has, for all intents and purposes, very gracefully accepted the fact that she is not going to be put in as the leader at this stage. The next stage, I think, for the United States is to maintain this essentially puppet regime that they are controlling as Venezuela as a energy colony. That's frankly what it is now for the US. It's part of the American empire. And when the time comes for them to be able to turn to the next stage, to bring in perhaps a democratic and free Venezuela, then Maria Machado or Edmundo Gonzalez, the opposition leaders, could be part of that election. But Delcy Rodriguez, as you say, now, to answer that specifically, it's becoming increasingly obvious now, with some of the reporting coming out of US media, that she was selected by the US as the stand-in. She gave a lot of punchy language on Saturday, saying this was an unacceptable operation. She appeared on Venezuelan state TV as the vice president, not the president. She was very proudly having that title on the screen. But since she has spoken about the need for cooperation with the United States of America, very gradually now turning her stance. And the reports suggest that the US has picked her because they can trust her to look after the oil in the country, to look after the infrastructure, and to allow companies like Chevron that do have a great interest in Venezuela to come in and carry out the sort of command of the resources that the US is clearly very interested in.
OK, well, on the news that the United States decided to do the very opposite of Philip II of Spain, as he, of course, did not wait for the winds to pass, and indeed God blew his Protestant winds and they were scattered. Let's perhaps return back to this century and thank Charlie Peters very much indeed. Let's now speak to the Latin America correspondent for the Revolutionary Communist Party, Jorge Martin. Thanks indeed for joining us. This is probably quite a sad week for you as a big Maduro fan. What's your response?
I am not a big Maduro fan, but you don't need to be a big Maduro fan to be outraged at what just happened over the weekend. Here we have U.S. imperialism going in to another country, which is allegedly a sovereign country, and kidnapping the sitting head of state. This is completely outrageous. And I'm not interested in discussing the military details of this operation. This is a basic question. Even you don't need to be a communist. I'm a communist, but you don't need to be a communist to be outraged at this. You just need to be a consistent Democrat. By what right does the United States go into another country?
Who's the consistent Democrat here?
And turn it into an energy colony, as your correspondent just spoke.
I hear you there, but if you're a Democrat, then you wouldn't really support the leader who's just been deposed, because he shouldn't really be there in the first place, because he didn't really win the election. So if you
this is nothing to do with elections. Trump has just Trump has just threatened the democratically elected president of Colombia and the democratically elected president of Mexico, about whom there's no doubt these elections have been not contested by anyone. And he's also said, you are next in line. Unless you submit to U.S. designs and diktats, you are next in line. This is about imperialist bullying. Okay. It's not about democracy.
I hear you, but that is a warning. But Maduro
is a warning. Of course, it's a warning of what?
I'm sure
it's a warning of military intervention.
Well, it's a warning.
Against
he hasn't
democratically
told you. He hasn't
leaders.
said what it is. You know Donald Trump. He hasn't said what it is.
He has said.
He hasn't specific. He hasn't been specific.
No, he specifically.
But the point is, if you are,
to the leader of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, he said, you are a drug trafficker and you are next in line.
But isn't he entitled? Okay, so on the matter of democracy, Maduro. Hang on, wait. On the word of on democracy, Maduro was not running a democratic regime, was he? He didn't win the election. He actually just took it and carried on, even though he wasn't elected as leader. So that's the first thing. It is. And
can I just say? Over the month of December, Trump entertained at his official residence the king, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, bin Salman, who's never won any elections. There are no elections in Saudi Arabia. That's why I'm saying this has nothing to do with democracy or whether
do you not
Maduro
see a difference?
Won an election or not. Whether Maduro accepts.
Do you not see a difference between? Do you not see a difference between Saudi Arabia, a country that has never been a democracy, where there is a legitimate head of state, crown prince, with whom we have diplomatic relations and all the rest of it, and a country like Venezuela that only a decade or so ago had legitimate elections, that had a democratic society that lasted multiple generations, and that democratic society was snatched away by a socialist military, in effect, coup, with Maduro clinging on to power even though 80% of his people voted against him, with the backing of the military, who he then gave lucrative drug smuggling paths to.
Can I just say, in 2002, April, the United States organized a military coup in Venezuela against President Chavez. President Chavez won 19 elections and referendums in the time he was in power. There was no doubt that he was a democratically elected president. That didn't stop the United States from carrying out a coup. So the reason for these coups and military interventions is nothing to do with democracy. Since when is the United States been interested in democracy anywhere? The reason is to do with two things. One, oil. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves anywhere in the world. And number two, China. The United States has said in writing in the national security strategy that Trump published in the month of November that they want to kick out all non-hemispheric actors from the Western Hemisphere, which they consider their backyard. And your correspondent has spoken about the Monroe Doctrine. This is what this is about. It's nothing to do with democracy in Venezuela. It's to do with the U.S. domination of resources and infrastructure in Latin America. That's why I'm against.
But Donald Trump hasn't said that it wasn't to do with oil. He's completely admitted that it's to do with oil. He also said it's to do with drugs trafficking.
Exactly.
And if that is part of the reasoning...
There's no drugs trafficking. That's just an excuse.
But he is within rights to protect the American interests and do what is necessary to do that. And if there is a problem with drug trafficking and a problem with oil, and remember the Americans, remember that the Americans had their... Well, the Americans, didn't they have lots of oil fields in Venezuela? And then they were kicked out of Venezuela when Maduro came in. That is right. That did happen. Yes, that is true.
Not true.
OK, well, what's your version of reality?
No. The oil was nationalized in Venezuela in 1976. Not under Maduro. If you can't get your facts straight,
I didn't say.
then maybe you shouldn't.
I didn't say that. No. I didn't say that.
You said the oil fields were taken away.
Yes,
by
from the
Maduro.
Americans. There were American
false.
companies had oil companies within Venezuela. When Maduro came in, they were pretty much kicked out.
Do you know? Can I ask? No. This is nothing to do with Maduro. I'm telling you, the oil was nationalized in Venezuela in 1976. This is decades before
But there were
Maduro.
American companies in Venezuela before
Maduro. Do you know why Venezuelan U.S. companies are not operating in Venezuela? Because the United States imposed an oil embargo on Venezuela. Not because they were kicked out. Chevron is operating in Venezuela under a license from the United States. The United States in 2019 imposed oil sanctions on Venezuela, and that's why there are no oil companies in U.S. oil companies in Venezuela, other than Chevron, which was given a special license.
Can I ask you, why do you think it is
and also,
that the United States... Why do you think it is that the United... One second, I'll let you come back, but you've just spoken. Why do you think it is that the United States can operate a 6.5-minute operation, go in and get out really quickly? We're not talking about a decade-long intervention here. We're not talking about Iraq or Afghanistan. We're talking about quick, successive, kinetic action that removes one man, and suddenly they believe, they think, and I think they have right to think, that the country can run smoothly and democratically after that. Doesn't that point to a fact that is different from other interventions? That actually it is the Venezuelan people who were desperate for something like this to happen, desperate for a tyrant to be removed, and frankly, the fact that the Americans don't have boots on the ground today, that they've got out so quickly, that it actually looks like this country could return to the democracy it enjoyed before the socialist tyranny of Maduro, and indeed to some extent Chavez before him, that they could return to a democratic society without the Americans.
Can I say, the United States used 150 aircraft. They had 25% of the U.S. Navy, including the USS Gerald Ford, in the region. They conducted a campaign of 6 months of military bullying against Venezuela, killing over 100 people in small boats. And during the intervention, they also killed about 80...
They were drug smugglers, weren't they?
No, they're not drug smugglers. It's not been proven. If they're drug smugglers, why don't they produce the evidence?
It's a strange sort of trip to make from Venezuela to the United States, unless you're bringing...
And they were entering illegally anyway. They weren't coming
No, they were not
illegally,
going to the United States. They were not going to the United States. Many of these boats were going from Venezuela to Trinidad and Tobago, which is just a few hundred meters away from Venezuela. So some of them...
Listen, Jorge Martin, thank you very much. We have to go. We really have to leave it there, but I'd love to talk to you for longer another time. Thank you very much.
One last question. By what right?
Sorry, we've run out of time. Thank you so much. Apologies.
We will have to get Jorge back at some point.
We will, really, because we need to clean up a few things here.
But don't forget, friends of GB News can vote in today's poll for free by scanning the QR code on screen now, visiting gbnews.com/youdecide. That's the other way to vote.
Yes, and today we'd love to hear your thoughts. Donald Trump is taking military action, further military action. What do you think? Currently, 87% of you say yes, 13% of you say no.
And if Bev Turner's return to Britain's newsroom this morning wasn't enough for you, there's more of Bev Turner on The Late Show live tonight at midnight. Much, much, much to discuss.
Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more on the way.
We will stop this. We will smash the gangs.
I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders.
Well, border officers will now seize small boat migrants' phones without arrest to gather intelligence in the latest crackdown on channel smugglers. But after the break...
Things have been tough in Britain for a while. For many, life is still harder than it should be.
New year, new care. The Prime Minister sets out his strategy for 2026, but some see this as yet another reset for the beleaguered Prime Minister. Will he still be in the job come 2027?
Well, all of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 28 minutes past 2 now. It's a new year in politics, and Sir Keir Starmer says he'll still be Prime Minister this time next year. Well, with warning frequent leadership changes are not in the national interest.
Keir Starmer also said a change in leadership would be a gift to leaders of Reform UK, Nigel Farage. So can the Prime Minister survive 2026?
Well, joining us now is James Heal, the Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator. James, it does seem that there is a great feeling in Westminster that this is a man who's sort of struggling to keep his head above the water.
Yes, Tom, and I think that's accurate. I mean, it's a new year here in Westminster today, but the very much message from Number 10 is that there's not going to be a new leader. And though there may be regime change in the air from Caracas to Manchester United, they're very much determined to say, no, we're going to plough on. This is going to be the year that we turn the corner. And that, I think there's been a sense of a year of proof is the phrase that some in government have been using. This is the year where there's proof of what the change that Labour can bring, proof of what Keir Starmer can do in government. I think the danger, of course, Tom, when we get to those May elections and we see potentially big losses for Labour in Wales and Scotland, it's proof that actually Keir Starmer may not be an election winner.
The problem I think the Labour Party will find themselves in are things like when you're cancelling local elections under the guise of unitary councils that you're going to change and restructure when you've been in there for some time where you could have done that then. And it has a very negative impact on those watching. So for me, looking at that, whatever their reasoning is, I think, what are you afraid of? It sounds like they're running scared.
Well, I think there's 2 points to that. Certainly, I think the first is that it gives the impression of a government that is not in control of events and is actually keen to kind of face up to some of the challenges politically or face its criticism. But second of all, it also means that you get all these kind of Labour rebellions breaking out on things such as the reorganisation of local government and what it means for kind of funding formulas. So I think that when it comes to those local elections, as you say, there's the impression given that they are scared, that they don't want to face their critics at the ballot box. And also it means also sort of lots of problems domestically storing up with their backbenchers too.
This is, of course, the, I suppose, almost inevitable consequence of what we've been experiencing as a country for the last 17 or so years. Just this feeling that nothing really works in this country. The Tories, of course, got through 5 prime ministers. Is it inevitable that we're going to have incredibly destabilised leadership, as Italy, for example, suffered in the early part of this century, simply because of the economic doldrums that we find ourselves in?
Well, Tom, I mean, given Maloney's now done 3 years and is the longest-serving Prime Minister since Berlusconi, I think Keir Starmer would kill for that continuity, would kill for the Italian comparison. But you're right. Look, I mean, you have written about this, I have too, about the dangers that the UK faces are much more structural and strategic. I think too many in Labour thought it was a simple matter of changing the blue rosettes to red rosettes and all the problems would be fixed. Actually, we've got deep-rooted economic issues in our country. And as the kind of economic scraps, the battles for resources on things such as organisation and funding get more and more vicious, you therefore kind of accelerate through this game of musical chairs whereby you replace one leader with another. Of course, the difference between the Conservatives and Labour, there's a much higher institutional barrier to changing leader in Labour. They've never actually managed to change prime ministers in office for that reason, except for the kind of exceptional circumstance of 2007. So I think that as a result, it's going to be difficult. But overall, I don't think it's going to be easy for Keir Starmer to say at the end of this year things have really turned around for most people.
Isn't one of the biggest problems that he has the fact that it's the boats? People are sick and tired of this. Now, this is a big problem for him. The latest intervention that they're going to do is they're going to take mobile phones from some of the people who come via the small boats. Now, to me, that is a nonsense. That's almost as bad as one in, one out, because they'll either just chuck the phone in the sea or just not. I mean, look, this is stupid. They're coming up with nonsense. If they could solve that, perhaps if he did that, then he might find himself in a better position.
Well, what it also does, of course, is give succour to Labour's opponents in reform and the Conservatives too, because people feel that they're not going to be willing to pay higher taxes for more services if those services are just going to be going to people who come to this country illegally. And that's the whole issue here. Labour wants to stand on fairness. How fair is that? And so Labour are doing a number of things which I could see Rishi Sunak's Conservatives or any kind of right-wing government which he got into power doing, such as the mobile phone ban, but is it enough? And you talk to people involved with Border Command, they've always been very clear you need to have a deterrent. And without that deterrent, and given how long some of the changes that Shabana Mahmood's proposing will take time to get into place because of legislation, are we going to see a third summer in a row of more boats coming here? And given the rise of 13% this year, it could be a very difficult 2026 for Keir Starmer.
Now, to get rid of Sir Keir Starmer, I believe it's 81 Labour MPs who would publicly have to back a named other individual. A very, very high bar, because it's both public and they'd have to back someone else rather than just the concept of getting rid of him as an individual. All of that taken in a word, is he gone by the end of the year?
I think he's a Remainer-loving Prime Minister, and so therefore I'll give him the odds of 52-48. Which order, up to you. But I think unprecedented times call for unprecedented solutions, and so my understanding is in the Labour Party, lots of different ideas have been discussed by some critics, including such as a secret ballot, perhaps, something like that. That could be the way forward. Also, it could be a bit like Boris Johnson echoes of 2022, whereby you get sort of all the pressure all at once, and that could be the sudden thing that gets rid of him. But overall, it's going to be the key question, of course, Tom, with any succession battle is who comes next, and right now the Labour Party is very divided about who the next Prime Minister should be.
All right, thank you very much, James Heal. He's the Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator. Maybe Keir Starmer will just simply resign.
Well, that would be that was the way that Boris Johnson went, after all. If there's a mass resignation from his cabinet, it could be the case. But goodness, what a remarkable day when I mean, it's not our top story. That, I mean, it's 50-50 whether the Prime Minister stays or goes. We have to wait until this point in the programme to get to that.
Yeah, well, listen, if you just joined us 34 minutes after 2 o'clock, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures and widespread ice warnings, just as people return to work or indeed school after Christmas.
All of that and much more after your latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon. These are the latest headlines just after 2:30. Former Venezuelan President Maduro has been transferred to a New York court and is due to appear this afternoon. Maduro is facing weapons and drug charges in New York after he was captured by US forces over the weekend. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has said that he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump threatened to annex Greenland. The Prime Minister added that his Danish counterpart, Mette Frederiksen, was right to refuse the US President any claim to the territory. US media reports that Vice President J.D. Vance's home in Ohio has been attacked. Local media outlets reported that several windows at the home were destroyed and police secured the scene. And some sporting news, Ruben Amorim has been sacked by Manchester United. The news comes just 24 hours after the 40-year-old took aim at the club's hierarchy following their 1-1 draw with Leeds on Sunday. And take care today as winter bites back just as the country clocks back on. Sub-zero temperatures and a web of snow and ice warnings are causing disruption, and hundreds of schools have shut and flights are delayed. Those are the latest headlines for now, and more on those stories at the top of the hour.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 38 minutes past 2, and we're going to take you to the House of Commons in a moment, where the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is going to face questioning, particularly, of course, about the small boat crossing figures. Shall we just listen in to what Mike Tapp, the Home Office Minister, has to say?
Oh, well, we'll try and bring you that.
We can't hear Mike Tapp. He's probably talking about the boats. He normally does.
Sadly not, but of course we'll also be talking about the case of Ala Abdel El Fattah.
From sponsoring migrant workers. The government is establishing the Fair Work Agency to provide a more cohesive and streamlined response to exploitation across all sectors.
Mr. Speaker, in recent weeks I've heard from several social care workers in my constituency who have each outlined to me the profound uncertainty that they face regarding their employer-sponsored visas, despite the critical role that these workers play in supporting the most vulnerable in our communities. What consideration has therefore been given to the idea that these employer-sponsored visas be replaced with sector-wide schemes to prevent continued poor practice from some employers?
Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for her question. This government acknowledges and is grateful for the significant contribution that health and social care workers put in, day out, across the country. However, it was right that we ended overseas recruitment of care due to the high level. There are no...
apologies for that. We're having a little bit of issues with the sound there, but we'll get that up to you because Shabana Mahmood is about to speak at any moment. But it's also the case of Abdel El Fattah. Now, that is, of course, the Egyptian who Keir Starmer welcomed to this country, and it turned out that he had been really basically slagging off white people and being very offensive. Apologies for that, but not being very polite about white people.
Certainly, there have been a lot of problems for the Home Office, although the argument from this government is they've got a new, effective Home Secretary who should be getting on top of things. But I suppose the question is that will they be able to? Traditionally, the Home Office has been an absolute disaster to run, a very, very hard department for any minister to get to grips with.
But how could they not? I mean, for this particular case of Abdel El Fattah, surely, I mean, even a very simple Google search, you'll be able to find the comments that he made. And it is just quite astonishing that, in particular, the Prime Minister would have been so openly vocal about welcoming somebody who clearly had a bad track record. And apparently it was a running joke in the civil service as well. Surely they would have known something about that.
Well, I can understand why an individual minister who is briefed by the civil service to say, look, there's this dissident, he's a secular dissident and this awful regime has imprisoned him, let's say something nice about it. I can understand why a minister wouldn't individually go off and search for this person on Twitter and go through all the sort of history of that. But what I don't understand is that why it would get up to the level of the Prime Minister putting out a tweet to welcome, saying that this was a top priority of the government, not just an offhand comment, but that this is a top priority of the government, with there being no due diligence done in that case. That is what I struggle to understand, because I can understand why some people, some backbench MPs might have just heard, oh, there's this guy, we think he's on our side, let's just fire off a tweet. I can sort of understand that. Why would they go off and do the Googling, although perhaps they should? But for the Prime Minister to say it's a top priority, bonkers.
Does he have any control over what's gone on Twitter? I mean, does he actually manage that, or has he got other people to manage it? 'Cause it seems very odd.
Certain Keir Starmer does not write his tweets. I'm utterly certain there's people below him.
How would somebody below him be so foolish as to make such a comment on his behalf, as it were?
Well, yeah, and it will have been checked with the Prime Minister before it's sent out, of course. So for something to be labelled as a top priority, and there being little to no due diligence off the back of it, that is what is utterly extraordinary. But also it sort of leads to a sort of, I don't know whether it's a group think or just an attitude within the civil service itself, that this is just something that we should be doing, even though, I mean, anyone who has Googled this guy's name can see a litany of tweets that, and to be fair, I don't think he's an Islamist. I think he's probably he's definitely a leftist who has said some really quite horrific things in the past. It does seem strange that he was such a high priority, given that he wasn't even a British citizen until he'd completed the majority of his prison stay in Egypt.
Well, let's joining us now is GBNews' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, to give us more. So, Catherine, what are we expected to hear?
Yes, well, you're looking at the House of Commons now. We've got Home Office questions. We thought it might be Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. It looks at the moment like it is Mike Tapp, one of the junior Home Office ministers, regularly on GB News, of course. But looking at the list of questions, a real range of things. Yes, of course, about the small boats. We know the numbers are up 13% on last year. They're not having that much luck, are they, in smashing the gangs? We've got the announcement today that they're going to be seizing migrants' phones when they're sent to the Manston detention centre. They're hoping that they can download data from those phones that will help them smash the gangs, as I say. But the thing is that while there is a demand, and there clearly is a huge demand for people to get into this country, the supply is likely to continue, isn't it? There still doesn't seem to be very much in the way of an effective deterrent. I'm just looking down the list of other questions that we're expecting to be asked, and community policing, rural crime, these are all things that come under the jurisdiction of the Home Office, an absolutely huge, unwieldy and many would say deeply dysfunctional department. Somebody asking what steps are being taken to reduce the pull factors for migrants seeking to come here, and that's a huge problem, and something that Shabana Mahmood, making those much tougher sounding announcements back in November, is seeking to address. But that's all going to take a long time to come in, and people are very frustrated. There's a cost of living crisis. They see people breaking into the country illegally, put up in hotels, given free dental treatment and all the rest of it. So this is very difficult for the government. They have had very little luck in the first year and a half, and they really need to get to grips with this, or they will go the same way as the last government did.
Yeah, a wide array of questions, of course, as you might expect for a Home Office questions session, relatively regular as they are. But Catherine, while we have you, this Prime Minister is clearly facing a huge challenge in terms of trying, frankly, to cling on to his own job. It is issues like those that fall under the purview of the Home Office that he's been really struggling to deal with. He promised to smash the gangs. The numbers arriving by small boat have gone up. But also on other fronts, it seems like he is trying to fight fires and failing on almost every front. Do you think that the Prime Minister can survive the year?
That's the million-dollar question. I think it is possible that he will still be the Prime Minister a year from now, not because Labour MPs aren't fed up with him. They absolutely are. I've talked to some who basically refuse to go out and bat for the government anymore because there's dozens of them thinking they're going to lose their seats. I think the thing that might keep him in power is, A, the fact that Labour are not good of getting rid of leaders. B, it would be very difficult for them to do so. And C, they really are not in any agreement as to who they might replace him with. Now, there's some supporters of Wes Streeting. Sure, he's a very good media performer. There's others thinking that Angela Rayner, who of course was Deputy PM, then she had to resign over the unpaid stamp duty, might like to come back. But really, the polling at the moment suggests that the only figure who would do better and give Labour a bump, especially against Nigel Farage, is the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. And he is the one big Labour beast who does not have a seat. So his route to even getting a seat in Parliament, let alone deposing a sitting Prime Minister, is very, very difficult. The rumours in Westminster at the moment that Wes Streeting might decide to go ahead of these crunch and crucial and probably devastating local elections in May for just that sort of reason. Of course, Wes Streeting's team would absolutely deny that. But I think one thing is certain: the Prime Minister is in deep, deep trouble, yes, with his Labour MPs, but more broadly with the country, because his approval ratings are the worst of any sitting Prime Minister in modern times.
All right, Catherine Forster, thank you very much. That's GB News' chief political correspondent reporting there. In a matter of moments, we are waiting for Shamala Mahmood. When she's there, we will come straight in and bring you her thoughts and comments.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come on today's programme, including...
Yes, this wrap up warm Britain as the country is hit by freezing temperatures and widespread ice warnings, just as people return to work and school after the Christmas break.
But if you're in search of escaping the snow after some sun, here's the forecast in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're after some warmer weather, Greece at the moment seeing temperatures above average. Still the risk of some showers across the Canary Islands at the moment and parts of Madeira. Perhaps southern Spain also seeing 1 or 2 showers, but generally some bright skies around. Heavier rain for parts of Italy on Tuesday. Could be thundery at times, and then the risk of some showers into Greece, but temperatures well above average for the time of year. And it remains so here for the next few days until eventually starting to cool down.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. Oh, no, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. That was Tom's gag. It's a freezing return to normal for millions across the UK today, with sub-zero temperatures and a web of snow and ice warnings already causing disruption.
Yes, forecasters say the worst may still be ahead, with hazardous travel conditions and the risk of some communities being completely cut off.
But while the cold snap is creating real challenges, it is also bringing moments of winter joy. In East Belfast, children have been making the most of the snow. They've been sledging and building snowmen on the Stormont estate.
Elsewhere, the picture is a little less playful. In Aberdeen, heavy snowfall has made driving treacherous, with icy roads causing serious concern for motorists.
And in West Sussex, drone footage, have a look at that, shows Clayton Hill blanketed in snow, which offers a stark reminder of just how widespread the cold spell has become.
So let's cross over to snowy Scarborough now, where our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley can join us, hopefully keeping herself warm from the snow. Anna, what's it like where you are?
Good afternoon, Tom and Nana, and yes, welcome to snowy Scarborough. It has been putting difficulties in for some people with travel. We know that the airport in Liverpool is currently, the runways closed with flights delayed or cancelled due to that. We've even seen some cars getting stuck as well on the roads here, and it's even worse in rural areas. Plenty of schools closed as well due to these weather conditions, but with that we have seen children out and about playing in the snow. The dogs have been enjoying it as well, dogs out on their walks. We've seen them splashing about as well in the sea and enjoying that. And of course it comes as we've got this yellow weather alert in place for snow and ice here in the Yorkshire and Humber region. That's in place until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. We know that there's still warnings across the rest of Britain as well. Northern Ireland is hit by this weather alert as well, also parts of Wales and other parts of the northeast of England. And with that, that's brought an amber alert as well, an amber health alert that's in place until Friday. So certainly if you're out and about, wrap up warm, maybe do some jumping jacks or even a snow angel as well, and enjoy the snow if you can.
It's great, Anna. Don't jump too much, though, because you could slip and that wouldn't be pleasant, although we would catch you on camera, which I was hoping to see.
We won't ask for any snow angels either.
No snow angels.
But Anna Riley, thanks so much for joining us.
Enjoy, Anna Riley. Well, I've got to say, thank you so much for watching Good Afternoon Britain. I'm back tomorrow, same time, same place, as are you.
Absolutely. Midday tomorrow. Don't miss it. Be there or be square. But, of course, still much more to come on GB News this afternoon. Don't move a muscle. It's the one and only Martin Daubney up next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The cold spell continues, slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight, a continued risk of ice, and for some there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. It won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too. Particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.